Amen. Amen. Let's find out. Okay, and the little thing should be good. There's your little invite. So, now, come on into this show. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't have a big fat agenda. But until the room fills up and somebody comes on in, let's see. I can read from Galatians if I can find it. I'm looking. Oh, there it is. Holy smoke, this is a long book. Oh, this is Romans that I'm looking at. Let me put it out of my visual range. That's John chapter 3. There's Galatians. Okay, now the title of this little episode is The Two Gospels, Paul versus the James Gang. And again, come on in and save me from myself. But until you decide to come in, guess what? Paul, an apostle, not from men, neither through a man, but through Jesus Christ. So James and the 12 did not appoint Paul an apostle. You know what? If you read the scriptures, Paul's letters and the book of Acts, you'll get the clear feeling that James was, annoyed that Paul stepped into the apostleship. Right? Oh, maybe Anthony from Idaho will show up here. In fact, let me get him on the phone and see what he's saying here. I'll put it up close to the mic so you guys can hear it too. Hey, buddy. I've got. Hang on. Let me put you on speaker because I did a show. I got a show open, and after I saw your text, I told everyone on the show, there's 5 people watching, that I was going to call you. Anyway, so what'd you say?
Oh, I seen your comments on Good News Gospels thing.
I know. They have no idea what's going on, do they?
No, all I did is I just popped, because it was on my YouTube. He's having a live show, so I popped in there, read the comments, and I seen you up and down the comments. And I'm like, oh, Ace is infiltrating. He's going to get punished by those guys.
Yeah.
You got to kind of sneak in and say your words and get out.
Yeah.
Before they gang up on you.
Anyway, I've got a show open. You can come on in and hop on with me if you want.
Okay, I'll be there.
See you in a minute.
I'll at least be in the comments, okay?
Oh, I'm going to try my best to drag you in here to the talking head section.
Okay.
All right, see you in a bit.
All right.
Okay, bye. Yeah, so I was just on over at Bill's channel. He calls this thing the Good News Gospel. But there's a whole lot of un-good news on his channel. So let me tell you what's not good news about the Good News Gospel. He believes and proclaims loudly in a loud voice, once saved, always saved. I don't have a real problem with that because that's true. What I have a problem with is that he doesn't go far enough about this once saved, always saved. Now, here's the question, when exactly were we saved? Were we saved when we said the sinner's prayer? Were we saved when we first believed? Or were we saved actually before Aeonian times? Or were we saved on the cross? He doesn't even go down that road to ask, because the truth of the matter is we were actually saved before we ever believed in this stuff. God chose us before we were ever born. In some verses seems to indicate that we were chosen before times Aeonian. And there's plenty of evidence to argue that we were saved at the cross when Jesus says it is finished. So once saved, always saved. So Bill believes that if you're truly saved, you can go on drinking beer, whatever, just the things that pleases him, that annoys, the self-righteous Baptists who say, no drinking beer, or else you're not really saved, you're backslidden, you're fallen from grace. Well, there is one reference in Paul's letters about being fallen from grace, but the only way, according to the context of Paul's letters, that you fall from grace, and that is you have to get back into works. Then you truly fall from grace. Oh, dang it. Jamming up. I'm back. The only way you can truly fall from grace is to get back into works. Okay? So once saved, always saved. Now, I don't know why he is so enthusiastic about once saved, always saved. Because it still does not deal with all those for whom Christ died. So he's got it in his mind that Christ, you'd have to conclude, if someone believes once saved, always saved, and they're pounding their fist about this matter and they think it's such a big deal, it's still very self-oriented. They're looking at themselves and worshiping themselves. How did they get saved? They must have done something that others did not do, and therefore they will be rewarded and others will not be rewarded. And so we're missing a big element of God's redemptive work. What about all those for whom Christ died? Well, Bill and his gang turn the work of God in the cross of Christ into an offer. God is offering you salvation. And you must take the right steps to take advantage of this offer, or there will be hell to pay. But if you too take the right steps, then you can never lose your salvation. You're once saved, always saved. But I feel for the rest of humanity who doesn't see this, because God has locked them up in stubbornness for the moment. And Christ still died for them. And I say that what God accomplished in Christ's cross was not an offer. It was God's work. God saves in the cross of Christ. And we can be happy about that, Some just happen to come on and believe it now. Some are not appointed to believe it now, because not for all is the faith. Not for all is the faith. So there's a lot of stupid people out there, and we are among them, right? And there's a lot of hardened people, and there's a lot of blind people, a lot of people who plug their ears up and don't want to hear. So what? The cross is still efficacious. Salvation is not contingent. It is not conditional. Salvation is not uncertain. But the once saved, always saved people, they believe that salvation is certain for those who meet the conditions. And if you have to meet the conditions, that means God did not meet all the conditions when he sent his beloved son to the cross. They're not seeing this thing right. So, it, it's kind of admirable to step into that arena of saying that if you're saved, if you're once saved, you're always saved, and that's cute. But it still doesn't really address what Christ accomplished on the cross. So salvation is not uncertain, it is not conditional, it is not contingent. It is the work of God. Why can't we believe what God has done and what God is doing? And why can't we believe God's Aeonian purpose? I love that passage, Ephesians 3:11. Just casually throws out there this phrase, God's Aeonian purpose. Now, the King James messes it up and says God's eternal purpose. But it actually is God's Aeonian purpose. And if you can get that clear in your mind, there's a lot of good stuff that will happen inside you when you believe God. We're talking about peace. What is a better gift than peace? Than being able to wake up each morning and realize that you belong to God. Not like the little 16-year-old says, God's on my side. Screw that. God is not on your side. You belong to God. All of you. Your whole family belongs to God. This whole nation, this whole world, all belong to God. Anthony, you're here. Come on in, buddy. And let's talk about once saved, always saved. Let's get to the bottom of this. I see it as a problem. You know, it's cute enough to step into that arena, but the truth of the matter is, once God makes up his mind to save all, well, God is going to save all. And how did God make up his mind? Well, he sent his beloved son to the cross to make certain that salvation is certain, because God is certain. And God does not operate in uncertainty. And salvation is a certain work of God. And salvation is certain for all unsaved creatures. And if you say that salvation is not certain for all of God's creatures, then you're saying that salvation is uncertain and that God does not operate in absolute certainty. He's kind of a gambling dude, rolling the dice and seeing what he can accomplish. There's your little invitation, hola boy. Anyway, so I was over at Bill's little channel just before I opened up this one. And they were talking about COVID and the insanity of the world and COVID death camps. Uh-oh, got a call. You have to hold on. Hold on while I take the call and Anthony comes in. Okay, where was I? Oh, yeah. Is God certain? Yes or no? Does God operate in absolute certainty? Yes or no? Is salvation certain? Yes or no? Is salvation the certain work of God? Yes or no? And if you say no to any of those, if salvation is uncertain for his creatures, oh my God, we have to go back down the road and even challenge whether or not God is certain, because he doesn't operate in absolute certainty, and salvation would not be his certain work, and salvation is uncertain for all unsaved creatures, and man, we have a mess. Hey, did you see the once saved, always saved boy?
I've heard about it.
I believe that's his favorite doctrine.
I think I'm part of that doctrine.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
What are you smoking?
Cigarette.
Sweet. What kind?
American Spirits.
Oh, they're good. They almost
Yeah.
have a cigar-like flavor.
It's the only
So when
thing
I
can
came up
smoke now.
in the 60s, oh yeah? Is it mild on you?
Yeah.
Is that why thing you can smoke?
Yep.
Yeah, the other stuff is
I
kind of has a harsh.
Yeah. Do I got a delay?
Say that again.
Do I have a delay?
No, you're not. No, you're not. More than anybody else. So, so we're jamming up. Now we're back.
Yeah,
You're
cutting
good now.
in and out. Okay.
Sorry.
Who's all in the?
Yeah, in the 60s when I was growing up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a delay.
That's okay. Keep talking.
I was just seeing who's in the chat because I have a question.
Go ahead.
Maybe someone could answer me.
We got Respect, we got Moonlight, and that's it so far in the chat.
Okay, I was on Martin's video a couple days ago, and
Yeah.
he had a guy made a comment. This guy does believe in the salvation of all, but there was a comment on there talking about, if you go to Revelation 21:6, it talks about people getting cast into the lake of fire. Okay, it talks about in 21:4, it talks about death will be no more. Okay, and then later, and it says something about the consummation. It says, I have become Alpha and the consummation, and that's before the lake of fire. So the guy trying to put the pieces together, and it got me thinking about it too. Like, how come the death no more and the consummation is before the lake of fire there?
Well,
you have to pull it up. Can you pull up 21:4, 21:6?
Oh my goodness.
You don't have to.
Before I do, I'll give you my answer.
Okay.
So in that passage, death is not abolished altogether. It just doesn't proceed on any more people.
That's what I was thinking.
But yeah, the abolition of death comes later, because everything is still there in the book of Revelation when it closes up. All four enemies of God, which are listed in 1 Corinthians 15, 24, 25, and 26. The four enemies are rulership, authority, power, and finally death. So when the book of Revelation closes up, there's still death there, even though death is no more. That just means nobody else has to die, but nobody is resurrected beyond the reach of death either. So there's not a great resurrection there. There's not an abolition of death. It's just that it's put on hold, so to speak. It's so maybe we can, there even John sees the point, and death genes are pulled in. Now I'm breaking up. When I'm back. How about now? You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. And it won't have any ring ability to go further, but it hasn't been abolished at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And for Christ to be, and does it say that Christ will be the Alpha and Omega?
It says, "I have become Alpha and the consummation."
And consummation. Well, you read on the sidebar while I'm doing this out loud. Can you see the comments? Oh, you must be on your cell phone. Are you?
Yeah, I'm reading them. I'm reading the comments.
What chapter? 24? Chapter 24?
What
The heck is going wrong here?
If I give them my card, money.
If people want their cigarettes, they want their pipe.
I'm looking for chapter 24, and there is no 24. So help me out here. What chapter are we looking for? The Alpha. Well, let's see. The one who dies at 100 will be thought of as a mere child. The one who fails to reach 100 will be considered accursed. Never again will there be an infant who lives but a few days, but an old man who does not live out his years. Isaiah 65 and 66. I am the Alpha and the Vega. Ain't that something? Well put, the abolition of death only extends the body of Christ and God's faithful Israel. All right, so Anthony, what chapter is it again?
Revelation 21:4.
21:4. Hang on. And what else?
And just start reading from there, I think.
All right, so let me the whole chapter and bring it up in case you want to do something else or read something else in that chapter. I'm almost there. Hang on. People's
You're cutting in and out.
I'm back.
Okay, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can. All right. So, verse 4, and he will be brushing away every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more, nor mourning, nor clamor, nor misery. They will be no more, for the former things passed away. Is that it?
Yes.
So, what's the question?
Well, does it say it says something around there about alpha? Oh, right there on 21:6.
Okay. And he said to me, I have become the Alpha and Omega, the origin and the consummation. To him who is thirsting, I will be giving the spring of the water of life gratuitously.
Okay, now go down to the end, and it talks about people getting thrown in the lake of fire. So I'm just saying that comes before the lake of fire, but you already explained why, and that's what I figured anyway.
The end, like that 22, you mean?
What's that?
Chapter 22?
Yeah, if you go down to the end there, it talks about the lake of fire.
Oh, verse 8. And all the faults in learning and suffer with the second death. Okay. I don't know what to say about this. It's so filled with rabbit holes and analogy. The second death, the second form of life, they're just dead. And in verse 4, death will not be charging forth anymore, but still nothing like what Paul reveals in 1 Corinthians 15, to where death itself is abolished and all are made alive in Christ. This is a revelation given to us by John. And so I don't know what to say about it. So did the guy have a legitimate argument to make, or was he just thinking out loud?
He was thinking out loud, trying to fit the timeline. Trying to fit the puzzle pieces together because he's seen that death and the consummation, the end of death and the consummation comes before the lake of fire in Revelation.
Okay, I just closed a bunch of windows. Maybe it'll behave better. Ha ha! I'm back.
Back in black.
Yeah, so did a lot of people try to answer the guy?
No, there wasn't too many comments under there. I'm reading Drew's comments right now.
Right. Okay, I'll post them here. Let's see if I can get to the last one. I just posted an image that describes the prophetic mountains and valleys in eschatology channel on the Discord. Yeah, true. Tired, but otherwise okay. Thanks for asking. Ace, you're breaking up. Come in, Ace, come in. The consummation is not the same thing as consummation in 1 Corinthians 15. There are numerous consummations in the scripture. My wife is going to sleep and she'll hear me if I join, so I can't join, unfortunately. Small apartment. He made one good point that actually made me remove one thing from my comparison chart, but otherwise, no, I don't agree with most of his points. Do you remember what his points were?
We're having in the comments chat there. There's 2 or 3 different conversations going. Drew's pointing
Yeah, it's
out what
kind of
we're
hard.
talking about, and then he's also pointing out AK's review.
Oh, let's see what he said about AK. I don't. Oh, here's AK. What did you think of AK's review in your discussions last night, Drew? Did he make any good points that made you ponder a bit? Oh, I see what he's talking about there. He made one good point. He also said at the end of the stream that the word until doesn't necessarily mean what we think it means today. Oh, man, don't you want to slap him?
St. Louis, what does he say until mean?
He must reign until he puts his enemies under his feet. What's the problem with that? I don't see any variation on a theme. I think it's time for St. Louis to come in too, don't you?
Bring him in. So what was the topic tonight anyway?
Well, I didn't have an agenda, so I just thought I'd give it a title that would annoy some regular Christians. So I called it The Two Gospels, Paul versus the James Gang.
I was watching some videos on the word Sheol.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if someone did a study on the word Sheol. I did find it out, where it came from, and they really don't have a definition for it. They say
Uh-huh.
it goes back to an underworld, and then we say it's the grave and Hades. It's all sorts of mixed up. I wish it'd be nice if someone did a study on the word Sheol.
Didn't Alan do one?
He was
With
more on
us?
the word soul, nephesh.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Okay, I went to another room and closed the bathroom door, and hopefully I don't keep my wife awake by talking here.
We'll talk quiet, too.
We'll
So-
whisper, Drew.
Yeah. Can you hear us, Drew? Can you hear us? We're whispering.
I'm going to back out and come back in.
Okay. So you know what Enoch says about the word Sheol?
Okay.
He says from all of the places, you look all over the Old Testament, and it looks like a grammatical form of a shoulder shrug. The man died and went to,
Okay, I gotcha.
isn't that an interesting way to put it? The man died and went to, Your
Yeah,
guess is,
I seen that it come up. When I watched this video, they said it came up in the Hebrew Scriptures 66 times.
yeah.
Which is a significant number. And then, what was the other word? There was another word. Oh, death comes up 1,000 times exactly
Wow.
in the Hebrews. Well, on this video I watched, it said death was 1,000 times in the Hebrew Scriptures, and Sheol was 66 times.
And soul shows up about 500 times.
Soul, nephesh.
Yeah. So, Drew, how did you like the review between you and AK?
It was okay. I didn't really agree with most of it, but I was too tired to call in and argue, so I just threw in some points in the side chat there on it. He did make a couple good points. One of them about the wild olive branch and the cultivated natural olive branch, and how that was. I don't remember exactly what words he used that convinced me, but I actually removed that whole line or row from my chart afterwards, because I agree that actually wasn't talking about the two churches. I was talking about specifically just about Gentiles and Israelites. That said, I think he was wrong. I don't think the tree is Israel. I think it refers to something more like God or the kingdom of God or something like that. So he was
Well, it
halfway,
is a
halfway on
figure.
that one.
It is a figure of speech, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a whole analogy. It wasn't a literal tree, obviously. And I know that olive trees do often represent Israel, but they don't always as well. So they can often represent things related to Israel, not necessarily about Israel itself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Just yesterday
Yeah.
on this little channel, we read Romans 11 like 3 or 4 times trying to make sense of it.
yeah,
It's a tough one.
AK was comparing it to believing or saved Israelites and unsaved Israelites and saved Gentiles and all that. And I don't think being in and out of the grafted into the tree has anything to do with being saved or unsaved, because the branches that were removed from a tree were never saved, so to speak, to begin with, at least under Israel's gospel. So it can't refer to salvation. So it has to refer to something else, because otherwise it would mean they lost their salvation, but they never had it to begin with.
Right.
So
a metaphor
that
can't
doesn't
be
work.
a metaphor has to be like a small picture, but it can't explain everything.
Yeah, I think the tree itself is more likely referring to God or the family of God or the kingdom itself, perhaps, but not specifically to salvation. So the idea that was talking about Gentiles being grafted into the nation of Israel, as AK believes, that I don't agree. I think he was way off the mark there. But he did make me think, and I did just move my line about the two being, representing the Israel of God versus the body of Christ, because I realized now that's not actually what it's talking about.
Hey, Drew.
Yeah.
What's this comment you made? Until the fullness of the Gentiles come in.
Oh, that was the part about St. Louis or St. Louis, I don't know which it is, was talking about the until part. So AK was talking about, Romans 11 again, I believe it was, where Israel has basically fallen until the fullness of the Gentiles comes in. I'm probably misquoting the verse. I don't have it in front of me. I don't have it memorized.
Until the full complement of the nations come in.
Exactly. So AK was saying, well, until doesn't mean that once the full complement comes in, then all Israel will become believers. And so he was a little confused on that one, because I think it does mean that. He is correct. Until doesn't always mean something will change after that point, because Paul said, he used Paul's example about how I have told the truth until this point or something like that. It doesn't mean he's going to start lying after that. But that was basically, you have to look at the context. It becomes pretty obvious when you look at the rest of the verses in Romans 9 to 11. The whole point of it has to do with God predestining Israel to fall so that the body of Christ can come into existence, and then eventually he would redeem Israel. But AK is convinced that the body of Christ is just spiritual Israel, and Israel is a figure of speech or a metaphor for the body of Christ, basically.
So what does he think that means right there when it says that?
What do you mean exactly?
Until the fullness of the complement.
Yeah,
what does he say?
I don't know that he actually elaborated on what he thought it meant. I watched that.
I'll be right back.
Did I watch? Sure. I can't remember if I watched that after I left. I left about halfway through to go to bed. So I don't remember if I was online at the time he said that or if I watched it this morning afterwards. But I don't recall if he actually gave an explanation as to what it means.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't watch the video. I went through some of the chats, and I seen you commenting.
That's right. Give me 1 sec. I'll be right back myself. The show is yours. All right, I'm back.
Oh, by the way, I love your book.
Oh, thank you.
Fantastic.
That is always encouraging to hear.
You actually make some other good points that Martin don't make in The First Idiot, and you I think you expand on it a little more.
Yeah, I based it on reading his book. His book is what helped me understand the whole concept. So, and I just, expanded on it a bit. But The First Idiot is still such an amazing book. Everyone should read that.
I got it right here.
Awesome.
And I read yours I read yours the other night from midnight to 2 in the morning. Got up in the morning and finished it.
Nice. It's always encouraging to hear. That makes me realize I didn't waste my time.
No, you didn't waste your time. It's great. And I like the I thought I had found every single site that I could find on this subject the last 2 years, but you have some extra links up on your site, and I've been pointing people to your site and read your stuff, and then they can just link up from there with all your links to the other site.
Yeah, I like providing people with all the links to all the different sites, and if you ever notice any that I've forgotten, please let me know on the Discord or subreddit so I can add them myself.
Right. And I've been going through Heralds of God's Grace and reading some of like Screws and
yeah, such a good site.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Welcome back.
Well, thank you. So now that you've had time to think about it, Drew, would you approach the whole matter differently with AK?
Well, I've been thinking, I'm going to have to write some articles on this myself, actually. I think a lot of this comes down to his amillennialist perspective, and I need to write some more articles about...
Oh my, that's a tough one.
Yeah, because I think if you're an amillennialist, you can't believe in two gospels. It makes no sense from that perspective. So you're automatically going to have to assume one gospel. It doesn't matter how many good points we make. There's no way an amillennialist can come to believe this. Whereas,
Right.
If
So just by saying that, you're actually saying he's slippery as hell because he can go any direction in any direction.
I mean, technically, yes. I don't think he is, at least not in a malicious or malevolent way. It just means that it's impossible to come to understand some of the truths that we understand because he has a, pre-biased. It's after 9, so my words are failing me. Preconceived bias towards the fact that Israel cannot, or the body of Christ has to be Israel. He just can't accept that there's two different groups, which means the idea of two gospels just makes no sense. It's completely, it's just meaningless if you have Israel and the body of Christ as the same group. Why would there be two gospels then? Whereas at least, basically lost King James onlyist, pastor that runs Grace Ambassador's website, he may not understand any of the various other things we understand, but at least because he's not a millennialist, he can see, there's obviously two gospels. Justin Johnson, that's the name of the pastor. I love that website. GraceAmbassadors.com.
What's it called?
GraceAmbassadors.com. They're not believers like us. They believe in the Trinity and immortality of the soul and free will and eternal punishment. They're King James onlyists, but man, their stuff on the two gospels is really good. So I actually link to them quite a bit in chapter 1 of my own ebook. But unfortunately, they're not in the body of Christ as much as they think they are. I wish they were, because Justin Johnson, really good writer and great website.
I have a question for you, Drew.
Yeah.
He said that the 1,000 years is a figure of speech for a long period of time, right?
That's the millennialist view, yeah.
Right, and then he said there's other verses in the Bible, the Old Testament, that speak to 1,000 years being a long period of time. Do you know anything about those verses?
I don't know if it's actually talking about 1,000 years being a long period of time, so much as 1,000 being a reference to a large number, like God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. So it doesn't literally mean only 1,000 hills. He owns them on all the hills, basically, or owns all the cattle.
Is it just that verse that he kind of? Is that what
it's the only one I know of. There may very well be others that I'm not thinking of right now, but that's the main one I hear them talk about. That's always the one it's the only one I've ever really heard anyone use to justify the idea.
So if you're an amillennialist, and what I'm suggesting is that gives you a license to cherry pick anything to mean anything.
Well, that's technically yes. I don't think they think that they're doing that, but it's unavoidable. Basically, just so many verses in the Hebrew scriptures that just don't make sense from their perspective. Like the one that Respect was talking about there, about the new heavens and the new earth. I mean, if that verse in Isaiah 65, I think it was, is talking about death on the new earth, well, that completely contradicts amillennialism because they believe, the new earth is the end. That's eternity.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no idea how they actually get it. They probably have. I'm sure they spiritualize that away somehow.
Wow.
I don't know how.
With all the
go ahead.
With all the rabbit holes that these guys come up with, I listen to them and I just say, thank God for Paul and thank God for A. Enoch.
Yeah, and Vladimir and Martin and Aaron and all y'all.
And Ace and Drew.
Everyone.
Any s'mores yet?
That said, the whole verse in Isaiah 65 that Respect was quoting earlier, a lot of people apply that to the millennium and think that somehow it applies to the millennium, which when you look at it literally, it doesn't really make sense because it says the new earth, but it could be one of those mountain valley issues. I don't know how to post images here, so I can't do that. But if it is actually the new earth, well, either way, I don't see how it fits in with amillennialism either. Because what does
you can do are you on Chrome?
I'm on Safari on my iPhone, so if there's a way to do that, yeah. I don't actually see a share screen option here.
Okay, well, never mind.
But yeah, a youth will be considered cursed if they die for 100 years, if that's the millennium. If that's right now, what does that mean? you got to find some spiritual allegory for it. And if it's the new earth, well, there's not supposed to be any death on the new earth from the amillennialist perspective. So either way, they're basically ignoring most of the Hebrew scriptures, in my opinion, and then reinterpreting Paul's writings accordingly.
So he thinks Christ is reigning right now, and
he sort of is in the heavens, but yeah, he thinks he's reigning over the earth as well.
Right.
Whereas no, the God of this eon is reigning on earth right now.
Wow.
That amillennia is pretty uncommon view, isn't it?
It's not the most common view, but it's becoming more common. It's like all of the Reformed believers are amillennialists, as far as I know.
Really?
But, yeah, it's part of their theology, to the best of my understanding, anyway.
I haven't really talked to too many of them, or any of them.
It was definitely not the original view of the early church, so to speak, for lack of a better term. It actually didn't become popular until Augustine, which is like the 4th century. Up until him, it was actually mostly only a couple universalists who believed it, but they, like Origen and a couple others. But the way they looked at it was even weirder because they were reading it all spiritualized and allegorical themselves anyway. So I don't think any of us would really agree with them on it. But yeah, Augustine basically popularized it from what I understand, and then it eventually, after Nicaea, became a more common view.
So have you, what does AK actually believe? Is he annihilation or eternal torment?
He leans more towards eternal torment, but he's open to annihilation, is my understanding. He's definitely not a universalist, though.
And so, when Jesus comes back, that's it. That's the end of the end.
Yeah,
Is that what
exactly.
you think?
Yeah, when Jesus returns, that's when all of the judgments will take place. He doesn't believe in separate judgments. Like, he thinks the judgment of the sheep and the goats is the Great White Throne Judgment, for instance, as well as the judgment of Israel, as well. He thinks these are all just different takes on the one judgment, as opposed to there being 3 or 4 different judgments. I would assume he thinks that the judgment seat of Christ is also the Great White Throne Judgment. Whereas we understand.
And then he thinks the new heavens and the new earth.
Yeah, he
so the new
thinks
heavens
basically.
And the new earth is just for believers.
Yeah, exactly. All the non-believers will either suffer for eternity in the lake of fire or be burned up and destroyed or whatever. He doesn't necessarily believe the lake of fire is a literal lake of fire, though. He thinks that could be figurative as well, although he doesn't necessarily know what that would be figurative of. But he is open to it. He's open to annihilationism as the end result, even though he currently leans more towards eternal torment based on discussions I've had with him. Now, that discussion was like a month ago, I think, so he could have changed his mind by now.
Well, he Bible Reasoning is his channel, right?
On YouTube, yeah.
So it's kind of funny. If he's reasoning, he would reason that eternal torment couldn't be true, right?
Sorry, say that one more time. I didn't quite catch all that.
If you were actually reasoning, wouldn't you think that your reasoning would tell you that eternal torment wouldn't be true?
I mean, you and I would think so, yes.
And I kind of found it funny when Wes was doing the debate with him, and then he brought up about Moloch and the sacrifice of babies, right? People were sacrificing them, and God said that never even entered my mind.
Oh yeah.
But then you turn it around and it enters his mind just to burn people forever, though.
I guess it's not babies.
Right. And he actually brought that point up against Wes, that it didn't even enter God's mind.
Yeah, so one thing that AK actually was very careful to do during his debate with Wes was to not support eternal torment. He supported eternal punishment, but not eternal torment.
What the hell?
Okay.
What's the difference?
Eternal torment means you're suffering forever. Eternal punishment could be annihilationism. You're being punished forever in the sense that you'll never enjoy life beyond the lake of fire.
Never
So
mind
punishment is-
what Christ
yeah.
did on the cross and whether or not it was efficacious.
Well, yeah, he obviously doesn't understand that whole aspect because we've heard his discussions on free will, and that's that. But at least he is open to the idea of eternal torment not being true. That's always a plus.
They all
Well,
want
it's-
eternal torment to be real. That's all they want. Revenge.
Yeah.
A lot of them, honestly, I don't
Yes, they
think
do.
all of them do. I do. I agree. A lot of them do, but not all.
Have you heard of the guy named Wayne Levi Price on
If I
YouTube?
have, if I have, I don't recall him.
He's a street preacher. He's nasty. He's the one that made me think the eternal torment was real for a whole year.
Lovely.
Just imagine
like a
trying to
street
have
preacher.
a conversation with him. You couldn't get through him at all. To him at all.
You can't get through it. Once someone's at the street preacher stage, it's almost impossible to get through to them.
All
They're
he
very
does
set in
is
their ways.
spiritualize everything. Just everything. Spiritualize the word second death and make it mean it's like he said he thinks that the second death is like, when you hold your breath and you feel that when you're holding your breath, he thinks that's what the second death is endlessly.
Sure.
That dying feeling.
I mean, you can make the Bible say whatever you want if you spiritualize it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have to spiritualize it because they think, oh, it can't be literal. I guess because the parables, they think that it just confuses them. They don't understand.
Well, the funny thing is, and this isn't about AK, because I mean, honestly, I like AK. He seems like a nice enough guy, and I think he's fairly sincere. But yeah, the majority of Christians out there, they interpret the parts literally that are figurative, and the parts that are figurative literally. Like the parables. Let's look at Luke 16. That's obviously a parable, but somehow almost every Christian takes it literally. And meanwhile, they take parts about I'm trying to think of the right words, the unquenchable flame, and looking at that literally when it should be a lot more figurative.
Unquenchable
Yeah.
flame just means it doesn't go out till
Oh yeah.
it serves its purpose.
Yep.
Hey, there's an unquenchable flame inside of a steam locomotive because you're constantly shoveling coal into it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fire on the altar in the tabernacle was said to be unquenchable, but it's currently not burning.
Yeah, it went out long ago.
Yep.
Or Sodom and Gomorrah. It's not still burning. But the Christians think it is somehow spiritually.
Well, they go and interpret that as the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, I assume.
I'm so sick
Yeah.
and tired of religion.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
everywhere.
It's terrible. Every time I run across the video of someone teaching about eternal torment or something. It just conflicts with my spirit so bad. It's like a fear thing. And it just shake my head so bad.
Oh, yeah. And also to respect in the live chat there. Yeah, exactly. They're happy to transliterate Angelus as angel, but they don't like transliterating Ion as Eon.
They don't want news that's too good.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to be the regulators of salvation. They're going to be like
Somewhat,
ticket
yeah.
holder.
Basically, I think a lot of them want to be able to, and they won't admit to this. In fact, they'll vehemently deny it, but they want to be able to have the credit for saving themselves or making the right decision. That's what it comes down to. So they don't like the idea that other people can be saved without making the smart decision they made. And even AK has denied that because I've brought that up on his show before. And they'll say they don't believe that, but subconsciously I believe they do. I'm convinced they do.
I think Eternal Torment's the worst. It got me in
Oh, yeah.
2018. It was bad.
It is the worst.
No, I
really
just
the
kept
worst.
constantly praying to God, please, please, please. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. Just reveal me something. So I don't want to go there. I don't want anyone else to go there. That's how I felt. It was horrible. I had to deal with
Yeah.
it for a year. Spring of
I'm sorry to hear
2015
that.
till summer of 2016.
Yeah, that sucks.
You ever read Mary Kay Baxter's book?
I always saw things on YouTube where it was like, oh, this person went to hell and saw it.
Oh,
That
yeah,
Really,
book is
really
terrible.
ugly pictures of this place. I don't know where they get that from.
the near-death experiences, yeah, that's all just silliness. Who is Mary Kay Baxter? The name is familiar, but I don't remember who she is.
She's the one that went to, she said Jesus brought her to hell for 20 days
Oh,
and
okay.
then followed her
Gotcha.
up for 10 days
For
in
20
heaven.
days.
I read that like 20 years ago, and it for like 3 months I was tormented, and I was running around telling everyone. And I was my girlfriend at the time, she was working 30 miles away from and every day she goes to work, I was like, I hope she don't get in a car wreck. I don't want her to die. I was in fear. Like if she dies,
Yeah.
she may go to hell. It made me go fear for a while, and then I totally just like, this is craziness.
The whole concept
That
is
book
ridiculous.
is so bad.
I mean, thankfully we know that dead is dead, whereas that's another thing that doesn't help. If you don't actually understand what death is, it makes it harder to realize that hell obviously doesn't exist.
St. Louis, 20 days. Mary Kay Baxter.
I assume she wasn't actually dead for 20 days.
No, he came by 20 days in a row. 20 nights in a row.
Okay.
Jesus came to her as she was in bed and took her 20 nights in a row to hell. And in the graphics of it, it's all just, it'll make you have nightmares. It's so terrible. Jesus
that
is
wasn't
going
Jesus.
in there telling people, I wish I could help you now, but it's too late. And, just over stupid stuff, like an old lady is in there because she was with Christ her whole time, and then at the end she didn't pay back a $10 bill to someone that she owed money to, so she was there because of that reason. Oh my God. And
Wow.
Jesus was like, you were always with me and then you left me at the end, and there's nothing I can do now. And then talking about how her flames just come in and scorch her skin, and then her skin renews, and it does it over and over forever. It's
There's nothing in
this
the Bible
book
that
is-
says that your skin will be renewed.
It's just, this book gave me nightmares. I was like, and then I
I
was
wonder
believing
what
it for a
actually
while.
came to her and influenced her like that. What do you
Well,
think? Probably
she either made
something
it
to
up
do
or
with the
demons.
submerged chaos and all
it was
those
either,
nasty things that are down there.
it was either demonic or she was making it up or was hallucinating. Excuse me. Richard asked a good question in the side chat. So if all are to be saved by the cross, and why talk about sound doctrine, try to guide people? Will they be damned for not knowing the truth? Yes, they actually will be. But they'll also be saved. It comes down to knowing what damned means. Damnation just means condemned. It doesn't mean eternal torment. But they will miss out. Now, of course, we also know from an absolute perspective, God decides who gets saved, relatively speaking, and who doesn't. But we don't know that. So we want to share the good news. We want people to know the truth because we know what it did for us learning the truth, and we want other people to be freed from bondage to religion as well. So, from a certain perspective, we're just being selfish because we want to do what makes us feel good by helping other people learn the truth.
Another thing that I don't like this world because it's getting worse. Take the injection, wear the stupid things on your face. That's all I hear.
You don't want to get me started on that because I agree completely with the injection and wearing a mask. So
It's all I hear in this place. There's nothing. That's all I hear.
And you will until the spring because pandemics generally last about 2 years historically speaking. I suspect this spring, I'm presuming there isn't some bad variant, it will all be over by then. That's how pandemics always go. It was the same with the Spanish flu. And we had the same situation. We had all the religious conservatives complaining about wearing masks and complaining about social distancing. And then it went away, once enough people died off and it mutated enough that it wasn't actually as harmful anymore. So no, get your vaccination, wear your mask. It's about loving your neighbor. That's what it comes down to for me. I don't want to make other people sick and cause people to lose their loved ones to COVID. And believe me, COVID is not fun. I've had it.
I don't like it. Problem is being used in a bad way.
It's honestly not.
Richard.
That's just conspiracy talk from people it's from conservatives again. You always get that from religious conservatives. It's basically fundamentalist Christians, the people that we came out of, and we're listening to them. I don't understand. This is just my little hang up. I don't understand why anyone in the body of Christ is listening to religious conservatives. Those are the people we're trying to get away from, the people we're trying to help save. Their conspiracy theories have never turned out to be true. I grew up on them in the 90s until I dug a little deeper and realized, oh yeah, most of this stuff is just made up. Yes, they got the odd thing right. A broken clock is right twice a day. But no, religious conservatives. And yeah, St. Louis, I got the vax as soon as I could. That was not a pleasant experience during COVID, and I don't want it again. My mother-in-law got it last July, and she had COVID last July. She still has not been able to return to work because she got long COVID. So she's basically had to retire, and she's just not able to return. So no, get the vaccine as soon as you can. I apologize. I love Martin Zender and all these people who are talking about the vaccine, but no, they're absolutely wrong. Vaccines are good. Get it as quickly as you can. And wear your masks. It's about not spreading disease to people. You don't want to make people sick and cause them to be lost to their loved ones. And that's my take on it. And no, vaccines are good. Sorry, Respect. That one we're gonna have to disagree on. The majority of it's been very well proven. The majority of people who actually die of COVID now and are in the hospitals are unvaccinated. There are a tiny percentage of breakthrough cases, very tiny, and almost none of them die. So, yeah.
Hey, Drew. Richard asked, damn to where?
To the fire. The second death, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they'll die a second time, basically,
Second death.
or they'll just miss out on the eons.
No
the
eon in
of the
life.
eons. Exactly. So if you're damned or condemned, it means you're going to miss out on the millennium. There's a good chance it means you'll miss out on the eon of the eons. However, it doesn't mean you won't be resurrected from the lake of fire at the end of the fifth eon. You still will be, of course, because of what Christ did. But do you want to miss out on the eons of the eons? And do you want other people to miss out on the eons of the eons? So that's why we spread the good news, because we want people to be there.
There is a verse in the Bible that says the eon of the eon. What do you think about that verse, Drew?
I find that one confusing. I know Enoch interprets that as the final eon as well, and I'm sure he's probably right about that. What's that?
Isn't that the fifth eon, the new heaven and new earth?
Yeah, that's how Enoch interprets that one. And
there's the eons of the eons, and then there's the eon of the eons.
And there's
the eon of the eon.
Yeah,
I'm talking about just the eon of the eon.
Without any plurals, yeah. Ions, yeah. Ionos. No, there's no Ionos. It's ion, ton, ion. Is that it? But yeah, I don't know for sure what that refers to.
Because the last eon should refer to the eon of the eons. And that verse stumped me too, like the eon of the eon. And I was thinking, is there a special eon inside of that last eon?
Yeah, it's tough because the eon of the eons we know is the fifth eon, and the eons of the eons is the fourth and fifth combined. So what is the eon of the eon? At one point, I wondered if it referred to the millennium, but I honestly don't know. So I'm happy with Enoch's explanation for now, but I haven't studied enough to really give a dogmatic answer.
What did Enoch say about it?
I just know he referred to it as the fifth eon. Sorry, give me a sec. Reading what Richard says here. Can you please not answer a question? Same question again. I have no idea what you said because you're spoken over. I'm guessing that was in reference to your question about damned to what. Damned just means condemned. It doesn't mean as to where. It just means you've been found guilty. in the court of law, basically. The punishment is a whole different thing from the condemnation.
Death.
Yes,
Punishment
that
is
is what
death.
it's death. Now it either means missing out on the fourth eon, or it means missing out on the fourth and the fifth eon because you're dead, either because of your first death or because of the second death in the lake of fire. Does that answer your question, Richard?
Because people aren't going to feel any pain. They're just not even going to know what happened. Next moment, they're going to be resurrected.
Yeah, maybe they'll feel pain as they die. I can't say one or the other, but yeah.
Hey Drew, what do you think about because A.E. Nock thought there wouldn't be a lot of people going on to the new heavens and new earth, and Martin Zender thinks there'll be a lot of people going on there. What do you think?
I'm with Martin on that one. I think there's a lot. I think it's more likely there'll be a lot of people on the new earth. Nock could be right about that. You're welcome, Richard. Nock could be right about that, but I lean more towards Martin's take on it.
That's what I take too myself.
The
you
new earth
thinking
is going
not
to have to be pretty massive.
Yeah.
So you're thinking not a whole lot of people will go into this second death?
No, I think it'll be basically the people
percentage-wise?
yeah, I think it fits into the people that John wrote about in Revelation 20 and 21. The people, the liars, the adulterers, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and the liars, obviously, it doesn't mean people who tell lies. It's people, habitual liars, your Billy Grahams and your Stalins and your Donald Trumps, and people like that, basically. People who don't ever tell the truth.
Any
What's that?
politician, basically.
Yeah,
Any
basically.
politician.
Any politician or televangelist, yeah.
That new earth is going to have to be really nice. Yeah, it's gotta be.
But I was
Yeah.
thinking about the new heavens and the new earth, and it says that the new earth would have no sea, right? And the sea's beautiful. The beaches are beautiful. I mean, that's going to be. I would
I think
like
there'll still
that.
be rivers and bodies of water.
Yeah, it doesn't mean there won't be any water. The sea could be.
I think it
figurative
just
as
means
well.
that the oceans are going to be smaller. The land's going to be closer. There's still going to be beaches and stuff. It's got to be.
The sea was a scary, dark place at that time when it was written. I mean, it still is if you've ever been out there in the middle of the ocean in the middle of the night. But that's where Leviathan lived.
It doesn't mean beaches and bodies of water. It isn't just going to be
yeah,
land.
exactly. There'll be
Okay.
plenty of.
Okay.
Yeah, because people
And-
still want to do water sports. People still want to do water sports.
Yeah, and it also could be figurative. The sea also refers to people.
The sea doesn't refer to people to like uncertainty and instability.
Yeah,
Is that what it means?
Exactly. Something
Means
along
that
those lines.
That's what it means. Doesn't mean like ocean, like water. He said sea,
Okay.
not
Yeah.
water. He didn't say
Okay.
ocean.
Yeah,
Didn't
because I was
say
going to
ocean.
say the beaches are some of the most beautiful scenery. You don't want to get
Yeah, I
rid of
love
that.
beaches. People like
And,
going. People love the beach.
Are we not going to have a sun?
I'm wondering if during the during the new heaven and new earth, are we
There will be
still
a
going to
sun.
do like fun things like water sports and everything? I wonder
Oh.
if that's still going to be around.
I'm sure. I'd be surprised if these things don't come back anyway.
I wonder
Or
if
the
people
push.
still can ride, do dirt bikes and go karts and all that. I would love that still to be around.
I think it's going to be, it'll be a new Earth, but people will still be people.
Yeah, they'll still want. Well, people will build them. They'll actually probably know how to build them themselves. Build them right home. Yeah, they'll probably. You know how Mario Kart's really fun? Real life Mario Kart. Imagine that. Real life Mario Kart, where you
Well,
can actually
I'm
use
thinking-
items.
Yeah,
that fifth eon's going to be
That'd be
so
pretty awesome.
extravagant compared to.
that's why it's called the Eon of
Well, we're
Eons.
at
It's
now.
the great
Well,
soul of
guys.
Eons.
Guys, here's the thing: is that we assume there's only going to be 5 eons. There might be more.
There could be more. It's definitely not impossible. I still lean towards there only being 5, but it is. All we know
There could
is
be
there's
little
at
ones
least
in
2
each
more.
one. There could be like little sections of pieces. They're divided into.
Yeah, it is possible there's more. I do think it's likely there's only 5, but there's definitely it.
And that new
It's
heaven and
not
new earth, there
impossible.
still has to be a sun to keep track of time, though. day
Well,
and night.
you still need a sun for the Earth to revolve around, right? It's not just gonna be a planet sitting out there in space. I mean, a rogue planetoid, because it's still a sphere, contrary to what some people believe. Sorry if you're listening to this. Yeah, people on the other side of the planet who aren't in the New Jerusalem aren't going to have light all the time.
I have a question to either Drew. Alan, are you on here too?
I'm here.
Okay. I read this comment on Martin's video a couple months ago, I think, and someone really went into the Greek on the when it talks about the consummation and the resurrection and vivification. Now we think that's all going to be at the very end of the new heavens and new earth, but this guy was saying that it's a process in the new heavens and new earth that people will be being vivified on the new heavens and new earth. Not all at once, but one here, one there, one here, one there. What do you think about that?
You know what? I've actually thought about that, and to me, it sounds reasonable. Actually,
I'm not
it could
opposed
very
to
well be that
actually.
way.
Yeah,
It's interesting. In the Gospels, although from my understanding, the word Gehenna is not referring to, or is probably not, though it could be referring to lake of fire. It's, from my understanding, that how do I put this? Jesus says you will not get out till you pay the last penny.
Yeah.
Right. So that's if the penalty is death, then you're just dead for the eon. It's pretty much everyone get the same penalty. But if you're only dead for a couple hundred years, or 20 or 40 years, maybe I'm open to the idea.
I'm definitely open to the idea of resurrection during the fifth eon, and I am open to vivification too. But I lean more towards it just being resurrection, based on what Alan just said is exactly my thought. The sentence is not the same as the judgment, so who knows how long you're actually dead for in the lake of fire? Could very well be resurrected long before the end of the
Voices have their part in the lake of fire, their own section, time period of it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, exactly. I'm definitely not opposed to resurrection during the fifth eon. Vivification, I lean more towards it being at the end, just because I think,
being vivified is way better than just being resurrected.
Oh, absolutely.
So much better. It's way different.
Yeah.
Think about this. There are countries and there are kings on the new earth, right? So if there are countries and there are kings on the new earth, are there laws?
Hopefully it's not crazy laws like we got now.
We have good laws and we have bad laws now.
There will be there'll be much more freedom of movement at that time, so you can just move to a nation that has
no need for driver's licenses. You just get on the road.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it depends how good a driver you are.
Oh man.
But yeah, who knows? And
will there still be money in the new heavens and new earth? Because I'm tired of that shit. Debt.
Well, it won't, if you're in the body of Christ, it won't really be relevant to you. I think.
Because that just leads to more. I hate shit like mortgages and loans and all that crap. I want that to go away.
I mean, most of that stuff is not applicable to the body of Christ, thankfully. Once you're immortal, most of that stuff just doesn't matter anymore.
And I think that freedom of movement, it still matters there, because I think there's probably gonna be nations that have like very different economical systems. Like I'm sure there'll be some trying communism, some sticking with capitalism, so on and so forth. Now,
Celestial communism.
Celestial communism.
Celestial.
Although communism is a very misunderstood term, but yeah.
As
almost nobody who is anti-communism has a clue what communism actually is. Including the Communist Party of China, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just can't wait. Maybe on that new Earth, I'll build like a huge amusement park for all the mortal people to come have fun.
Well, one point is most of us aren't going to be on the new Earth. We're going to be in the heavens. We
don't go to the Earth at all.
I mean, I'm sure we can visit.
We should be able to. We have
jurisdiction over it.
And maybe we'll be administrators over some projects on the Earth.
Very well could be. But I mean, Earth is honestly small potatoes compared to most of the rest of the universe. When you consider the size of the universe and how many empires of celestial beings are probably are out there for us to help, got to deal with reigning over them and reconciling them.
That said, the new Earth will be much bigger than this current Earth, more than likely,
Oh,
based
yeah.
off the dimensions of the
It
New
has
Jerusalem.
to.
Anyway, on
It
the
has
current
to be.
Earth, the New Jerusalem would practically cover the entire North American continent.
No,
It's
that's
pretty
not,
big,
not
anyway.
true. The New Jerusalem is about the size of Texas, from what I've heard.
Well, it's
I think it
still
might be in between
2,500
our two
miles by
statements, but it's definitely
2,500
not as small
miles.
as Texas.
Texas is actually huge.
Texas is not small. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that the New Jerusalem is even bigger.
Yeah, but either way, I agree. The new Earth will all certainly be larger than the current Earth.
It has to be bigger because you're gonna have to has to hold more creatures.
Well, yeah, it's not just all the humans who have lived and died, but all the animals
the
who have as
creatures.
well.
Amen.
How many billions of creatures do you think there are? Is he gonna keep track of them all?
I mean, if you can keep track of all the hairs on our heads and the sparrows and all that, I'm sure you can keep track of all of them.
Let's keep track of the beings that are on the earth at the time, and keep track of all that. That's
Anyone
insane.
else like to go pet a dinosaur? That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I like to have flying solar sail ships that go like at 200 miles an hour and just zip around and solar sails. I love that.
Who knows what sort of technology the Celestials currently use? I personally
A lot.
suspect. Yeah, I personally suspect they're not just traveling here through interdimensional portals or whatever. I think they are using spaceships.
Machines, yeah.
Yeah, there are still beings like us. They're beyond us. That they're still physical beings to a certain perspective. So
Don't we get our own little, what is it called, an allotment where we have a, what is it, like a land we rule over or something?
Well,
Only if you behave yourself.
Yeah.
Only if you behave yourself, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
Will I
You
still,
can.
if I don't get that, will I still be able to build steam locomotives and run them?
We'll do our best to get you one.
I'll put a good word for you.
Mortal being, I should be able to build as many of them as I want. But to pick a place to run them.
Yeah, it's all speculation. Exactly. Nobody knows for sure. We have a few details and things that seem logical, but lots of things we aren't going to know till we get there.
Yeah.
So wait, only a certain people get an allotment?
Only if you rule. What's the word? If you endure and suffer with him. Something like that.
It seems that way. Yeah, there are certain sins or actions that can disqualify you. It appears from Paul. You'll still be saved. You just miss out on the allotments.
Yeah, but that'll still let me build the steam locomotives because I'll still get the immortality. I'll still get the knowledge to how to build one. That would. I probably just won't get as much land. Probably have enough land to at least have a place to put one together. Maybe you'll have. So the ruling and reigning, that means you're like controlling over a certain section. Well, but if you don't, you're just living, and you just pick a
That's
section to
theory.
live in. Is that basically what it is?
Who knows?
I think you still have a job. You just aren't in the government per se.
There you go.
Maybe I'll be like a mechanic and I'll fix the machines. I'd like that. Yeah, like a technician. Build ships. I'd like that.
Okay.
I'll be able to build ships. I'll build big craft to move things around the different realms. Above that, maintain the machines.
Roger that.
All I know is even the basic celestial allotment is way better than even being rich on the earth.
Absolutely.
I mean, what the billionaires have on this earth, you're gonna have that baseline. Not even.
Amen.
And they live in a world full of sin.
I know, and they live in a world full of sin and
Well,
death.
we're going to a world full of sin as well. We're not leaving a world without sin.
Yeah,
We have to
heavens
deal
are
with
not
it.
clean in his sight, as I think the psalmist said.
The celestials, I think, are worse than the earth. Actually, I think it's even worse because
It seems hard to imagine, but yeah.
Well,
isn't
I
that
mean,
what the
there should be more knowledge of the Lord there than there is here. I mean, he doesn't even reveal himself at
Yeah,
all.
no knowledge, but look at Israel. They
Or
had all
is
that
there?
knowledge, yet they didn't follow it.
I wonder about that sometimes, though. I mean, we know those who are close to. I'm assuming the New Jerusalem is where the current throne room of God is. I don't know for sure, but I'm just going to say the New Jerusalem for lack of a better location for
Well, the
it.
celestial realm, I think, is different levels. There's like levels that are further away, and if you get the ones that are better, or get closer and closer to where I'm guessing God is in like almost like a different part. It's like a citadel almost. That's what I
Within the
think
New
of.
Jerusalem. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well,
like
you
a
got his temple
citadel, and
within
he's in
there.
there, and he has to
But it's not
constantly
just
guard the
sure.
beings
Sure.
trying to come in.
But it's not just the New Jerusalem. Heaven is the entire universe. It's all of how many billions of light years is the universe? So there could be empires of beings out there who have basically never even heard of, they know nothing about God at all. For all we know, we don't
Stuff
actually
like
know.
Star Wars is probably real. There's probably stuff like that. Stuff like Star Wars. That stuff's
they're
probably
probably-
real.
It's 93
Except they're
billion
probably
years,
not.
light years wide.
What's
There probably is
that?
lands like Star Wars and stuff like that.
The
That
universe
stuff's
is
probably real. There's all these other realms.
I don't think it's other realms. It's just other parts of the universe, other planets, and what have you. Space
That's what a
stations.
realm is, a different world.
Oh, I see what you're getting at. Okay, I see what you're getting at. Sorry, I was seeing like other higher dimensions and things. What were you saying there, Alan?
all right. The universe is 93 billion light years wide.
Well, there you go. I mean, I'm sure they have faster than light travel, but still, odds are the majority of them may never even seen the New Jerusalem. They may have only heard of it.
Yeah, but they're probably not even allowed to go near it because it's
That's-
too energetically powerful. They might not be able to go near it.
It's very possible. Yeah,
I feel like
Again,
their existence probably is less likely to have a secular explanation than what our existence is, though.
Yeah, especially if they're immortal, like as we
That's a big thing,
hypothesize them to be. Yeah, I mean, they may not be. I personally think they are, but the Bible doesn't
I
actually
thought
say
Christ
they're
is the
immortal.
only being that's immortal.
Well, he's the only human who's immortal.
But I thought beings that are immortal, they can't sin if they're immortal.
That's the question. Is that true or not? It could be that beings who were once mortal and became immortal will no longer sin because we know better at that point. Question is if that applies to someone who was made immortal from the beginning.
Well,
And we
there's
just don't know.
also maybe they weren't made immortal at all. Maybe they're just these don't get old.
Yeah, it's so hard to say. Yeah, they could be not immortal but not mortal, the way Adam was and the way Jesus was on Earth. So they don't age and die, but they can be killed, for instance. That's one theory. It could be that they're just really, not invulnerable. What's what I'm looking for there? Hard to kill anyway.
Yeah,
But
you know,
perhaps they can be killed. There are verses in the Bible that imply they can die, but
Yeah,
there
that
are
verse
reasons
where
to
God judges the Elohim. You will
Yeah,
die
Wait,
with
so
like
me
mortal
too.
wait,
man.
what is the when they say the Lord of Hosts? What does that mean?
it's referring
That
to Yahweh. I
Christ?
can't remember what.
What's that says a lot in the Book of Enoch, the Lord of Hosts.
I wouldn't pay
I knew
attention
at
to
one
the Book of Enoch at all, but
It's in the Bible too. I don't remember what it
What does it
stands for.
mean
It's
though?
Yeah, I actually knew that recently because I actually read something on it.
Are the hosts
Completely-
the like celestial beings, the celestial realm?
Maybe I wish I could remember because I
Because in
literally read
Elohim,
something
the
about that recently,
more
but I've totally forgotten.
I
Elohim
saw
is
people on
generic.
YouTube that if you don't name him, no, I saw stuff on YouTube that if you don't name God Yahweh, you're that's the mark of the beast by not calling him Yahweh.
well, whatever. You know, Christians
Sure.
like to make up stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is that Elohim is a generic word. You know,
Mhm.
for example, I remember I posted in the Discord, where it says that demons are Elohim, and if
Mhm.
demons are Elohim, well, then certainly angels must be, and if angels are Elohim and demons are Elohim, and Yahweh
Humans
is
can be
the-
Elohim.
yeah, humans can be Elohim as well. God made Moses Elohim to Pharaoh, and God made
It
Moses.
just means subjector. Anybody who's your
Subjector,
boss or your
plagiar.
subjector is your Elohim. There is only one Almighty Elohim, but there are lots of lowercase g gods, or there are lots of Elohims, even though there's only one Almighty Elohim.
But that's hidden by translation. A lot of it.
I wonder where the Book of Enoch came from anyway. It's
I would
horribly
not-
mistranslated. I know that.
I
That's
would
true.
not put any faith in that, mate. I would not put
I
any
haven't
faith in the
studied
Book of
enough to
Enoch.
be able to make any comments on it. I know like tiny bit about it, and not enough to really be able to say anything.
The Book of Enoch talks about Gehenna and the Lake of Fire.
Does it?
Really?
It's a warning to Israel about Gehenna. That's what it's about. That's what the book of Enoch is. It's warning. It's a book to Israel to warn them about the Gehenna fire. It's a warning
Yeah.
about Gehenna fire. Watch out.
Listen, you know who you know.
Well,
here's
it's
the-
pre. The book is pre-Adam, or sorry, pre-Abraham.
Is it? What was it? Language is written in?
Well, I mean, if the story is authentic, then it's pre-Abraham. Because
I see what you're getting
Enoch's
at, yeah.
heaven for man.
Guys, I would not put any faith in that book. You know, the Book of Enoch ends with basically annihilationism. Basically, what's the word? The Messiah comes to Earth, and that's it. All the righteous live
True, but
forever,
so
and
does-
all the wicked die forever.
Sure, but so does the Bible.
You know,
Read the
here's
last book of the
No,
Bible.
no,
right?
no, no. But Drew. Here's the thing: is that the Book of Revelation has that extra 1,000 years, right? Here,
No, my point though is that with Revelation, it basically ends with the wicked dying a second time forever. And if we didn't have 1 Corinthians 15, that would seem like the final word was annihilationism, right?
Mhm.
no,
So
but what's the word? The Book of Enoch is completely missing the 1,000-year reign of Christ. What's the word? The Gog and Magog. It's missing a lot of things actually.
What does that?
but I mean,
Does
so does
Isaiah have it?
Isaiah.
I mean, we were just
Isaiah
discussing
doesn't have that
Isaiah
either.
to that point. Like Isaiah skips from the Messiah coming to the new heavens and the new earth. At least I
Yeah,
think it does.
that's why I
Actually,
posted that picture of the whole mountains and valleys on the eschatology channel on the Discord, because Isaiah seems to miss all that, but
Mhm.
we know it's there from Revelation. So I'm not saying the Book of Enoch is trustworthy. I'm just saying that if we didn't have
That's not a
1
good
Corinthians
reason to say it
15,
isn't trustworthy.
yeah, I'm not saying it is or isn't. Just Revelation would seem to say the same thing if we didn't have 1 Corinthians, and Isaiah seems to say the same thing as well.
A lot of people. There's also a lot of people that say that there's a lot of books removed from the Bible.
I would not believe
They
that
do.
at all.
No, I don't either.
Here's the thing: is that the books that are in the Bible were verified by prophets while they were alive.
Yeah. No, I'm satisfied with the what we call the 66 books, or the 49, I think it actually is, if I remember correctly. When you actually put the books like 1st and 2nd Samuel together and all that.
Christians can just make up anything.
And they do.
That is so true, though.
Anything to get you fearful and get you to go to them,
Yep.
because they want to be the dispensers of truth.
A lot of them do anyway, the religious leaders. I mean, a lot of them are just scared because they believe what the religious leaders told them. They're not all bad. Many are, but many are just deceived. That said, the ones who are big on free will, they don't realize it, but they definitely like to be their own saviors.
Hmm.
Would they be the ones that say, that Christ says, "I never knew you. Depart from me"?
That wouldn't surprise me, although it's hard to say for sure because that has to do with Israel, whereas the body of Christ is a whole separate issue. The people who says that to are people who believe they were going to live in the kingdom on earth when it begins.
Is that what the Christians think? That's all.
It's true.
Well, they believe in the rapture. Most of them actually. They believe
A lot
that
of
they're going to
them.
be raptured away.
No,
I wouldn't say
the guy-
most, unless you mean a lot of them anyway. Yeah.
that guy Wayne Levi Price, he doesn't believe in a rapture. He thinks he believes he's got to go through the tribulation.
Yeah, a lot
But
less
you-
believe in the rapture these days.
Will he make it through? That's the thing. Probably not. He thinks
But
he
even
will.
Even if he does, unless he ends up following the gospel of the circumcision during it and enduring to the end, he may not even get to live in the kingdom. He may have to live on the other side of the planet with the goat nations.
He'll have to because he believes in eternal torment, which is the biggest.
Yeah, I don't think eternal torment disqualifies you per se, though. It's not a good belief. It definitely disqualifies you from the body of Christ.
If he keeps believing in it, it's spitting in Christ's face, spitting in his face, and he doesn't want that. That's
I mean,
blasphemy.
you're right. You're right.
That's the
but,
worst kind of blasphemy you can do.
But the only thing they really have to believe is that Jesus is Israel's Messiah and the Son of God. Now they have to follow that up with water baptism and good works and what have you.
And they believe in the Trinity, so they don't, really.
Yeah, that also probably disqualifies them because they don't believe in the Son of God. They believe in God the Son, which is not the same thing.
Yeah, I keep
But
hearing people thinking Christ is God. Even my dad keeps saying that. He still
I mean,
thinks.
he is God, lowercase g, but he's not uppercase G
Well,
God.
he thinks he's uppercase G God. My dad thinks that he's God. God died.
Yeah, and that disqualifies anyone from the body of Christ. But whether it disqualifies people from the Israel of God, I'm not 100% sure. I suspect it does.
I'm wondering who are the
I could be wrong.
true Israelites anyway.
Well, I think most of them probably don't know who they are themselves at this point.
Are they a specific
I
race?
wasn't. Sorry,
Are
I'm
they
just
a
looking at a lot.
specific race or not?
Sorry, give me a sec here. I'm just reading
What was
side
the
chat
question?
from these.
Are the true Israelites a certain race? Like they have to be black? Because that's what I keep hearing, that the black people are
Ignore
the true
that. That's
Israelites.
just the
No,
Black
that's
Hebrew
that's
Israelite
just made
cult.
up.
That's just a cult. Israelites are people who are genetically actual descendants of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Yeah.
You know, there's a huge difference between 1% milk and 2% milk. Because here's the thing: 1% milk and 2% milk don't actually refer to the fat content per se, but how do you say, it's not, you're getting 1% more fat, but it's what's the word on fat by weight. So what's the word on? Most of milk is water, right? So what's the word? The 2% milk is actually, I think, like 60%
Right, that's
more
too.
fat.
Yeah, 1% milk. I might as well just drink water at that point. Skim milk,
Yeah.
don't even ever touch it. I'd rather drink water than mess with one skim milk. Doesn't taste like milk at all.
Agreed. All right, I've got to get going to bed. So good chatting with y'all. I'm way past my bedtime here.
All right,
Yeah,
good night.
sorry, I can't
comment.
post that image here. If anyone else can figure out how to get it on there, go for it. But it was something I had in my camera roll on my phone, so I pasted to the Discord there. I don't have an actual link to a web page with it.
So there's a comment that Israel is only the descendants of the 12 tribes. Is that correct? Did I understand you correctly there?
Sorry, me or Nick?
I think you're the one that said it. Yeah.
Yeah, ethnic Israel is descendant of Israel, Jacob.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that comment was based, or it was made in the context of the people that are. I'm sorry. Like, it wasn't just about ethnic Israel, right? Like, isn't anyone that is circumcised for the sake of joining?
Yeah, they're counted Israelites. They basically become Israelites. So yeah, you're right. They're technically, but most of those people end up do that because they've married an Israelite. So
Say
their
that again?
offspring was, from my understanding, is most people who do that because they marry a Jew. So their
Okay.
offspring will still have Abrahamic DNA.
Well, this kind of came up in my conversation with my family today about God, Jesus only being commissioned to the children of Israel. It was brought up that Jesus one time went and preached to a Samaritan, right? And even did he meet with the rest of the Samaritan town?
Wait, he didn't go to preach to the Samaritans. He just he was
He was
talking to
walking
someone.
through there. Yeah, he just happened to sit down and talk to somebody by the well. Yeah, there were definitely instances where he made exceptions. I mean, he did help the Canaanite woman after she basically acknowledged him as Israel's Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
But
the Samaritans are circumcised, are they not? They follow the Mosaic law.
I think so. Yeah, I think they are. I could be wrong about that. It looks like someone actually managed to post
why
it. I have no idea who did that or how.
No, he does tell them not to go out to the Samaritans, doesn't he? At one point, okay.
Yeah,
that particular verse he says not to the. Okay.
Yeah, he just happened to be walking through Samaria.
Wow, this is going to be a big chart. You know what I'm really curious about? Since we're going to be immortal, I'm wondering if I'm going to be able to remember very much of what happened here. Like the music I listened to and the things I saw. Wonder if I'll be able to remember them perfectly.
Out of curiosity, sorry to interrupt, but who posted the image there in the video, and how did they do it?
Number 2.
I did
What's
it.
that? Oh, nice.
I did it.
Oh, I like that.
Oh,
Did you just go to the Discord and copy it from there, and then? save it
I went to
there?
the Discord and opened up a separate page and moved it around, and then I shared the screen.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the image I was talking about.
Explain it.
Basically, a prophet who is looking from the past to the future, they can't see everything because certain points are, on figurative mountains, so to speak. So they can only see the mountains. They can't see what's hidden in between the mountains, in the valleys. So they weren't even capable of seeing the church age, as it's called there. Referring to our era of grace or our dispensation or whatever. And they also can't see the millennium until John wrote about the 1,000 years in Revelation. It just wasn't known. It looked like, you see Jesus return and you see the new earth. But if you don't know about Revelation, you're not going to know that there is a 1,000-year period in here as well. So yeah, Isaiah saw all that stuff, but he didn't see the 1,000 years. Some of the details that he wrote about might apply to that, but they might not. If you want a really good example, Luke 4. I don't remember which verse. It's Luke chapter 4. But when Jesus is in the synagogue and he's as a youth and he's reading from Isaiah, and he talks about the various good things that had come. I can't remember what the verse says. I'm sure most of you know what I'm talking about though. And he says, this is fulfilled in your sight. But he stopped reading right before the verse that talks about the day of the Lord, which is talking about the tribulation. So there's a big valley. Yeah, he literally stopped reading. He read all the good parts, but he literally stopped reading right before the bad part. So yeah, the prophecies about him, there is a big gap in between them and the tribulation. Even if you believe, like the preterists do, that Revelation took place in AD 70, it's still a 40-year gap in between those two Bible verses. So there's a valley right there. Of course, we believe it's a lot more than 40 years. We think it's 2,000 years or so.
yeah, right.
So yeah, it's a good example of a prophetic valley.
Speaking of prophecy, right now it's the 22nd. There's this pastor on YouTube called Pastor Sandy, and he said that God told him that the rapture would happen before his birthday, and his birthday is on the 26th, I believe. So he has 4 days for something to happen, right?
By the way, I actually watched that. I found that video and watched it, and he said that he would not celebrate his birthday on Earth, right? That's what he said God told him, right?
Maybe he'll die before then, yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe that will be fulfilled by his death rather than by the tribulation.
Well, here's the thing: is that he doubled down. Like I was expecting him to not to try to whitewash it, but he doubled down the next video. So,
Yeah, I mean, I believe that he heard a voice.
Well,
Yeah,
of course.
He very well might have, yeah.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is that he gave that prophecy while he was talking about how false prophets should shut their mouth, right? Right. So, that can't be just coincidence, right? False prophets
Send a lying spirit.
There's too many guys who are not called, right? All right, we'll have to find out if you're called or not.
That's funny. All right, this time I really should
Yeah,
leave.
Drew.
Have a good night, all.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's
But
the
he
thing.
struck me as a genuine person.
Well, I wrote to that guy many emails. He didn't say my name per se, but he talked about me in the sermon. What's the word? This guy fell for everything. There's no hell, and all right, whatever.
yeah.
What's the word? Anyhow, but here's the thing: is that in the prophecy community, and a lot of people are using the dates, the chronology of the Hebrew Masoretic to arrive to this. If you go by the Hebrew Masoretic chronology, we're around or close to 6,000 years. Some, when they do their chronologies, come before 6,000 years. Others say we passed 6,000 years. Others say we're near 6,000 years. If you go by the Hebrew Masoretic.
Yeah.
If you go by the Septuagint, we're on the year 7,500-ish.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting how much difference there is, and it's just genealogy. So it's curious to me how that occurred.
well, anyhow, the other thing is that there's all this hoopla about how it's about 6,000 years. So Jesus should be coming soon. The 6 day plan of God, 6 days
Hmm.
you work, 7 day you rest. But if you're on the Septuagint chronology, well, that's blown away.
We're already way
Right.
past that.
We're way past that.
We're even past day 7 on that scheme.
And here's the thing: is that what's the word? I came on this channel. Did I come on this channel? Well, anyway, I was talking about the fig tree generation, right? Matthew 24. And Matthew 24, if you pay attention to that to the fig tree is not talking about Israel per se. It's talking about the signs of the end time. And just as a fig tree has, when you see the fig tree sprouting near, summer is near. So too, when you see the signs listed in Matthew 24, and it's like 4 paragraphs of signs, then the end is near. It's not the fig tree, which
Right.
Christians
Okay.
tie it to Israel. That's the sign of.
Yeah.
It's the actual signs. And what are the signs? There will be a persecution of Messianic Jews who believe in Jesus unto death. That's not happening at all. There'll be wars and rumors of wars. Well, there are wars out there. I mean, but that many? Is it that bad? I can't say. Nation will rise against nation. There's a whole bunch of things. What's the word? And here's the thing: is that we are about to run out the clock for the 2028 rapture theory, or not the rapture, the 2028 second coming, right? Because October is about to end,
Yeah.
right? And once October ends, well, now if Jesus has to fulfill the feast days in 2028, you don't have enough days in the calendar to do it.
There'll still be a little bit of grace period because we know that God is going to shorten the days. But yeah, it's definitely we're coming up close on the end of that. Like if it goes to January, February, then is he really going to shorten the days by that much? And also, I think we have explicit day counts, right, in Daniel.
Yeah, we have explicit day counts, so you can't shorten things out anymore.
You're running out of time at that point. For sure.
But if you go by the feast days and just count down the 7 years by days, what's the word? By November 1st, we pretty much run out of time for either the pre-tribulation rapture is false, or what's the word? He still comes in 2028, but the pre-trib rapture was false, or we're into what's the word? He's just not coming in 2028. Something has to give. Right. And all these people with their dreams and their visions, and God said, and God told me, thus says the Lord. And I've seen that happen all before. I've seen it with Donald Trump. Donald Trump will remain in office, thus says the Lord. You just need to have faith. And then when they get it wrong, why are you mocking? Why are you scoffing? Don't you know in the last days, scoffers and mockers, they'll blame you. They'll blame you. They'll put all the blame on you. Right. They're gonna shut down their YouTube comment section, and then they're gonna make videos about how you're dividing the body. But anyhow, what's the word? Here's the thing: is that if you pay attention, because here's the thing: is that what's the word? In Daniel, you have the king of the north and the king of the south, and a lot of people believe that's talking about the Antichrist. Now, here's the thing: in the king of the north, king of the south, that takes place over 3 generations, right?
It does. I actually used this passage today. I referenced it, so I'm glad to know. I'm gonna learn how I used it incorrectly.
All right, the 3 generations, mate. What's the word? And there's this king of the north, king of the south. Well, where is the king of the north and the king of the south today? If that's the Antichrist, this place takes place over generations. How do I put this? Now the rapture isn't tied to any Israelitish thing, right? And maybe you could say, well, all right, you could say the king of the north would be Bashar al-Assad the second, right? Because we have Bashar, the first Bashar, then we have the second Bashar, and you could say, all right, well, there's about to come a third guy in Syria. What's the word? Who will take the throne? Because what's the word? I don't know if it's directly a hereditary monarchy, but it's a hereditary dictatorship.
So you're saying that is a geopolitical thing that's currently going on? Is it this the leader of Syria is about to transition?
Well, you know, that is the closest thing I can find in the political landscape to a king of the north.
Uh-huh. I mean, yeah, it refers to Syria at some point, right? I think it
Well,
because
so
I've seen
specifically,
people connect this, although I don't think it's correct. I think I've seen people connect this to the uh, union that Syria and Egypt had for a short time in the 80s and 90s.
well, what's the word? A lot of people, when you look into the Daniel prophecy, King of the North, King of the South, they talk about the Seleucid Empire. What's the word? And the Seleucid Empire was, what's the word? You know, Syrian in nature,
Mhm.
right? You know, Epiphanius, you know, what's the word? The fourth, Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth,
Yeah,
Seleucid Empire. So that'll be Syrian-ish. So, and then you have the king of the south, which was the Ptolemaic Empire of Egypt,
yeah, the
right? So there would have to be, you know, king of the north, king of the south. The closest thing I can find to the landscape right now is Bashar al-Assad. You know, and I guess it would be the number two because if you pay attention to the king of the north thing, it's 3 generations: the first, second, and third
the what
generation.
thing?
Say again.
Oh, the what thing?
The king of the north prophecies, the king of the north and the king of the south.
Okay.
Yeah, but we don't have any king of the south though, right? And if I remember correctly, there's the king of the south's daughter, you know, and I don't see her anywhere, you know. So
hmm
if Bashar al-Assad isn't it, not Bashar al-Assad, the guy who replaces Bashar al-Assad isn't it, you know, if it takes 3 generations for this to kick off, you know, we're nowhere close if you think about
Right.
it like that,
Okay.
you know. Oh man, Drew,
That
you got
makes
something to say?
sense.
Sorry, H, you got something to say? All right, well, let's check out the King of the North, King of the South prophecies. Let's look them
Oh,
up.
does Nick? Are you aware that your mic is muted, Nick?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making
You know
sure.
what I'm wondering? When we get, vivified, will we be able to remember anything that we did here? Like any of the music we heard or any of the cool things we saw? Will we be able to remember that?
Hold on. I need to deal with my dog. Did anyone throw out an answer as I was gone for like 15 seconds?
No.
An answer of what?
To the question that Nick just asked.
Oh. Well, Nick, I suspect we will remember our whole life because it'll make the contrast of of the goodness that we have at that time. We'll be able to compare pitiful little lives, even the stuff that we enjoyed. We'll say, "Whoa."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we don't remember anything from what
So
happened,
we'll say,
then it will
"Whoa."
Sorry.
Go ahead.
If we don't remember anything from what happened in this life, then it will seem kind of futile. I mean, God could have just created us in that future state if we're just not going to remember anything anyway. Like, why do all this if none of it's going to be remembered, right?
Yeah, I would
Rick
say
will
a
remember
verse that would
everything.
justify that thought is Romans 5:18, where it says that God will justify all of life itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So even a baby that's 2 days old and dies, at least you'll have something to compare to, you know.
Mm. And she'll still have some mortal existence on the new Earth prior to her vivification as well, I believe.
So they
On the
can get
basis
their
of everything we
contract.
discussed earlier. So
Ace, can you authorize the screen share?
Another thing I'm curious about is, will there be people born during the new heavens and new earth?
I suspect they will, but I can't say for certain.
And can vivified human beings have children?
I believe not.
No.
yeah.
All right. Now, as we were talking earlier in the discussion about the hills and valleys, right? And how, what's the word? You know how like Jesus Westward when he was talking in the synagogue. He only quoted half the verse, and between the first half and the second half, the first half of the verse happened. The second half of the verse, thousands of years away. All right, so it could be that that's the case in this prophecy. All right, but if it's not, if this has to repeat, we're far ways off from the second coming. But anyhow, let's repeat. Let's read this out. Daniel 11:12. And the first year of Darius the Mede, I took my stand to support and protect him, the kings of the south and the north. Now then, I tell you the truth. 3 more kings will arise in Persia, and then a 4th who will be far richer than all the others. When he has gained power by his wealth, he will stir up everyone against the kingdom of Greece. Then the mighty king will arise, will rule with great power as he pleases. After he has arisen, his empire will be broken up and parceled out towards the 4 winds of heaven. It will not go to his descendants, nor will it have the power he exercised, because his empire will be uprooted and given to another. Now, traditionally, people interpret this as, all right, this is Alexander the Great and his division to the 4 Greek empires. But anyhow, the king of the north and the king of the south will become strong, but one of his commanders will become even stronger than he and will rule his own kingdom with great power. After some years, they will become allies. The daughter of the king of the south will go to the king of the north to make an alliance, but she will not retain her power, and he will lose his power, will not last. In those days, she will be betrayed, together with her royal escort, and her father, and the one who supported her. One from her family line will arise to take her place. He will attack the forces of the king of the north and enter his fortress. He will fight against and be victorious. He will also seize their gods, their metal images, and their valuable articles of silver, of gold, and carry them off into Egypt.
Egypt.
Right, so think about this. If this has to happen now, that means Egypt, or the military force behind Egypt has to be strong enough to invade another country that is northward. And when I see anything on the geopolitical landscape at the moment? Not at all. For some years, he will leave the kingdom of the north alone. Then the king of the north will invade the realm of the king of the south, but will retreat to his own country. His sons will prepare for war and assemble a great army. They will sweep like an irresistible flood and carry the battle as far as his fortress. Then the king of the south will march out in a rage against the king of the north, who will raise a large army, but will be defeated. When the army is carried off, the king of the south will be filled with pride and will slaughter many thousands, but he will not remain triumphant. For the king of the north will muster another army larger than the first, and after several years he will advance with a huge army fully equipped. In those times many will arise against the king of the south. Those who are violent among your own people will rebel in fulfillment of the vision, but without success. Then the king of the north will come and build up siege rams and will capture a fortified city. The forces of the south will be powerless to resist. Even their best troops will not have the strength to stand.
Jesus.
You okay, Rob? Something said something.
He said something about fortified cities. Cities aren't fortified anymore. So this can't be modern day. People don't build walls around cities anymore.
Yeah, they do. They do it right now.
They do?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a giant wall around where I live.
Well, you live in America. But
we don't have fortified cities. We don't put huge, like 100-foot walls around the cities.
Hold on, Nick. There are fortifications. And right now, Israel is filled with walls. What's the word? The invaders will do as he pleases. No one will have the power to stand against him. He will establish himself in the beautiful land and will have the power to destroy it. He will determine to come with the might of his entire kingdom and will make an alliance with the king of the south. And he will give him a daughter in marriage in order to overthrow the kingdom, but his plans will not succeed or help him. He will then turn his attention to the coastlands and will take many of them. But a commander will put an end to his insolence and will turn his insolence back to him. After this time, he will turn back toward the fortresses of his own country, but will stumble and fall and be seen no more. his successor, right? So think about this: his successor. If the Antichrist is the successor of this guy, and this guy hasn't even shown up yet, right?
Mhm.
Now, of course, a lot of people interpret this as, well, this was Antiochus III, and then the successor Antiochus IV, and the what's the word? The King of the South is the Ptolemaic Empire, which happened during the intertestamental periods. But anyhow, what's the word? In between the writings of Malachi and the writings of Matthew, there was. Anyhow, let's continue. His successor will send out tax collector to maintain the royal splendor. In a few years, however, he will be destroyed, and yet not in anger or in battle. He will be succeeded by a contemptible person who has not been given the. All right, so there's another successor. So we have this guy, then the successor, then another successor. He will be succeeded by a contemptible person who has not been given the honor of royalty. He will invade the kingdom when its people feel secure, and he will seize it through intrigue. Then, with an overwhelming army, will be swept away before him. Both it and the prince and the covenant will be destroyed. After coming to an agreement with him, he will act deceitfully, and with only a few people, he will rise to power. When the richest province feels secure, he will invade them and will achieve what neither his father nor his forefathers did. He will distribute plunder, loot, and wealth among his followers. He will plot to overthrow fortresses, but only for a time. With a large army, he will stir up his strength and courage against the king of the south. The king of the south will wage war with a large and very powerful army. He will not be able to stand because of the plots of guys against him. Those who eat from the king's provision will try to destroy him. His army will be swept away, and many will fall in battle. The two kings, with their hearts bent on evil, will sit at the same time and lie to each other, but to no avail, because an end will come. Because an end will still come at the appointed time. The king of the north will return to his own country with great wealth, but his heart will be set against the holy covenant. He will take action against it and return to his own country. At that time, he will invade the south again, but this time the outcome will be different from it was before. Chips of the western coastland will oppose him, and he will lose heart.
The Western
Then-
Coastlands. What is that? Is
Yeah,
that European Federation?
I've seen prophecy teachers too. Let's say that's America and NATO. But think about that. If that's America and NATO, where's the king of the north, king of the south? Where are these guys? You know. And he will lose heart. Then he will turn
Does it
back.
have anything to do with that city they're building in the Arab Emirates called Neom?
That's not west.
Because they're trying to build something called the Line or Neom. Does that have anything to do with this?
This has nothing to do with this. Arabia is south of Jerusalem. I'm guessing this is all, what's the word, north, south, east, west from Jerusalem. Arabia is south of Jerusalem, not west. And vent his fury against the Holy Covenant. He will return and show favor to those who forsake the Holy Covenant. Now, traditionally, this was interpreted as Antiochus Epiphanes, also the word of sacking the temple and instituting the Greek religion. Anyhow, his armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. Then they will set up the abomination that causes desolation. With flattery, he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant, but the people who know their God will firmly resist him. Now think about this. Remember what Jesus said, he who has ears, let him, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. When you see the abomination, what's the word, desolation, spoken of the prophet Daniel. Well, all right, how much of this previous prophecy has to take place? Does it just a guy have to come into the temple and desecrate it? Or does he have to, have a king of north and a king of south? And to what extent? But anyhow, those who are wise will instruct many, though for a time they will fall by the sword, or be burned, or be captured, or plundered. When they fall, they will receive a little help, and many who are not sincere will join them. Some of the wise will stumble, so that they may be refined, purified, and made spotless, until the time of the end. For it will still come at an appointed time. The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed. For what has been determined to take place, he will show no regard for the gods of his ancestors, or for the one desired by women. nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. Instead of them, he will honor a god of fortresses, a god unknown to his ancestors. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. He will attack the mightiest fortresses with the help of a foreign god, and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. He will make them rulers over many peoples and will distribute the land at a price. At the time of the end, the king of the south will engage him in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and great fleets of ships. He will invade many countries and sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade the beautiful land, which is Israel. Many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered from his land. All right. He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt will not escape. He will gain control over the treasures of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt, with the Libyans and Cushites in submission. Now, guys, let's talk about the riches of Egypt. Egypt is poor as hell, right? Egypt is what's there in Egypt to take? The pyramids, and besides that, what else? Anyhow, the reports from the east and the north will alarm him. And I remember a guy who was teaching. I even taught this once back in the day. All right, north and the east, the Russians and the Chinese, but it doesn't say the Russians are Chinese, but still. The reports of the north and the east will alarm him, and he will set out in great rage to destroy and annihilate many. He will pitch his royal tents between the seas at the beautiful holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. At that time, the great prince who protects your people will arise. There will be a time of distress, such as has not happened from the beginning of nations until then. But at that time, your people, everyone whose name is found written in the book, will be delivered. Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life or aeonian life, others to shame and everlasting contempt.
Aeonian contempt.
Yes. Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But you, Daniel, roll up and seal the words of the scroll until the time of the end. Many will go here and there to increase in knowledge. Then I, Daniel, looked, and there before me stood two others, one on this bank of the river and one on the opposite bank. One of them said to the man clothed in linen, who's above the waters of the river, "How long will it be before the astonishing things are fulfilled?" The man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the rivers, lifted his right hand and his left hand toward heaven, and I heard him said by him who lives forever, saying, "It will be for a time, times, and half a time, when the powers of the holy people has been finally broken. All these things will be completed." I heard, but I didn't understand. Neither do I. So I asked my my Lord, what will come? What will be the outcome of all this be? He replied, "Go your way, Daniel, because the words are rolled up and sealed until the time of the end. Many will be purified, made spotless, and refined, but the wicked will continue to be wicked. None of the wicked will understand, but those who are wise will understand." From the time of the daily sacrifice is abolished, and the abomination that causes desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. Blessed is the one who reaches the end of the 1,335 days. As for you, go your way until the end. You will rest, and then at the end of the days, you will rise to receive your allotted inheritance.
And that last verse actually came up in conversation today when we were talking about soul sleep, which it seems to be that's Daniel's fate, right? He rests, he sleeps until the end of time, or the end of days, which is
the end of
the
1335.
Yeah.
From my understanding, text.
Mhm.
So yeah, Daniel's not in heaven. He's waiting till 1335 days. So we know what's the word that at least the 3.5 years here has to happen at the end of days. But to what extent the rest of this has to take place? Because here's the thing, a lot of people will say, what's the word, that most of this was fulfilled with Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth. All right,
it's very possible.
But to what extent and to how much though? Because the other thing is that there still seems to be the king of the south, or at least the king of Egypt will still be around with this prophecy, right?
Yeah.
So-
and both those countries still exist. Syria still exists. Egypt still exists.
Yeah, but what's the word? The interesting thing is that the Antichrist, he's a successor, right?
Mhm.
So, all right. But do the other two guys? Is that the repeating history? I don't know. Right.
Oh, he's okay. He's an ancestor of the King of the North.
Well, what's the word on? He's a successor. I don't know about ancestor, but he's a successor.
Oh yeah, okay.
All right. Let's see. Let's scroll up. All right. The other thing is, right, his successor will send out a tax collector to maintain royal splendor. In a few years, however, he will be destroyed, yet not in anger or battle. He will be succeeded by a contemptible person who has not been given the honor of royalty. All right, so he doesn't have to be a king per se.
Okay, wait. So we're maybe saying that between verses 19 and 20 there could be a swath of time.
I guess.
Is it possible?
I mean, here's the thing is that in Bible prophecy there are huge swaths of time. All right.
Well, is it believed that these events described were fulfilled in that period of time?
Here's the thing is that what's the word on this? Here's the thing is that according to Jesus, this has not been fulfilled, right?
All of it?
Well, he says the abomination of desolation.
Okay.
All right. So that has to still come, the abomination of desolation. Now, there was a guy named Antiochus Epiphanes who did ransack the temple and did fight the king of the south, the Islamic Empire, which is the Egyptians. And he did, force the Jews to convert to Hellenism.
Yeah.
And
all of that is like 200 years before Jesus' time.
Yes.
Like that had already occurred.
Yes. So Antiochus Epiphanes cannot be the actual Antichrist. But he's the closest picture. Right.
Yeah.
What's the word? He will invade the kingdom of people in secure, and he will seize it through intrigue. So,
well, if there is a swath of time, then it would make sense because this would be a one of those ways that God does something that is misleading to people, right? They assume that there's no swath of time between him and his successor, and so they look at that and think that the rest of it has already all been fulfilled. But then you have Jesus, as you say, I don't know where it is, but if Jesus did say that this has not happened, then there's no way for the remainder of the passage to have already happened, right? So evidently we do have a swath of time between him and his successor, if that's the case.
Yes. But still, there's still a south here, right? There is still a south, and there's ships of western coastlands. What's the word? So, I'm guessing, here's the thing is that using the geopolitics of today and projecting onto Bible prophecy has a bad track record, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ships of western coastlands, NATO, right? Because people did the same thing back in the day in the 1980s.
What does the concordance say here? That's what I'm curious about. I'll pull up the concordant. Is this chapter 11 of the book?
Well, that was chapter 11.
Okay, the concordant has, "For there come against him boats of Chittim, Chittim, and it's capitalized, so evidently it's the proper name. Chittim is, let's see. It's in the genealogy of Genesis 10, which I don't know if that helps me very much. Well, it looks like it sounds like it could be something that could be identified. Oh wow, the Septuagint translated that word into Romans. So the Septuagint says that, I actually alluded to that when you first read it. Is I thought, okay, so the Western coastlands, is that referring to Italy, that area, the Western Mediterranean? And it seems like the writers of the Septuagint seem to think that way. They thought that it referred to the Romans. So it's interesting. Obviously not inspired, but nevertheless very interesting.
Well, let's see. Let's go to Matthew 24 for a moment, shall we? Wow. All right. And then you will be handed over and persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear to deceive many. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached to the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come.
Okay.
So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. All right. So all we know is, according to Jesus, this part has not happened.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. He's obviously speaking of it as if it's a future event.
Yes. Now, interesting enough, going back to Daniel 12, what's the word? When does the angel date his the days? All right, from the time that the daily sacrifice is abolished and the abomination that causes desolation is set up, there will be 1290 days. All right, so all we know is that once the abomination of desolation is set up, there'll be 1290 days. All right.
Oh, until what?
And then blessed is the one who waits for. What's the word? Hold on.
So we don't know what happens at the end of that 1260 days? That's odd. It just implies that something will happen.
Well, no. What's the word on? Hold on.
From the era when into the setting. Wait a minute. From the concordance says, from the era when the continuous ritual is taken away, and to the setting of the abomination of desolation is 1,290 days. That reads a little bit differently. How did the NIV read? That's the NIV.
The time that they get the sacrifice is abolished and the abomination of consolations is set up, there will be 1,290 days.
Yeah, the NIV makes it sound like those are the same event. The concordant reading, I guess, maybe could be taken that way. From the era when the continuous ritual is taken away, and to the setting of the abomination of desolation, is 1,290.
Now, what's the word? Here's the thing: is that like you go to Christian YouTubers and like they'll tell me how like Obama is the Antichrist, and they're still saying that to this day, by the way, right? They're saying Obama is ruling the White House through what's the word on through Joe Biden. Right. It's like, oh my goodness, man. It's terrible. Like I know people who said that God told them that Obama is the Antichrist. I remember hearing that. I was like, well, he's only got a few months left till he's out of office. Like, holy shit, man.
Right.
Oh, man.
And it doesn't sound like the it sounds like the Antichrist has to be Assyrian or someone from that region. Does it ever say? It says Egypt explicitly. Does it ever say Syria explicitly in this?
It doesn't say Syria at all. I don't see Syria
so
at all.
Wait a minute.
Syria. There's no mention of Syria. There is Egypt mentioned here. It's the south.
Egypt gets pillaged, but yeah, we don't know. That's an interesting omission. I mean, it mentions what the domain of the kingdom of the south is, but it doesn't say anything about what the domain of the king of the north is.
Many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered. All right, Moab and Ammon, I believe that's what's the word on Jordan.
That's Jordan. Yeah.
Edom. Here's the thing. How do I put this? The Edomites were conquered by the Jews in the intertestamental period. So, by a guy named John Hersing, they're all forced to convert to Judaism. But let's see.
Okay.
Come on. Looking at the map.
Edom is like far western Saudi Arabia, I think, geographically. And also maybe Jordan.
It's just south of Jerusalem, just slightly south
Yeah.
of Jerusalem. Oh man.
South of Jerusalem.
It's in between Israel and Jordan, in the lower part of Jordan. The lower parts of Jordan and Israel, that would be Edom,
I see. Okay.
geographically speaking. Still, like I've seen people try to twist this. They say, well, according to the Bible, the Babylonians are north, right? So, what's the word? And who's going to control Babylon? America. So,
That's a stretch.
At
At least the first part of it. I mean, that could it be that region? Because that would make sense because the kingdom in Revelation is centered around Babylon. So that would point toward Iraq, and Iraq.
And then you got the destruction of Damascus. But right now, Syria is doing fine. Bashar al-Assad is doing just fine. Doing just peachy.
Well, it's still racked by civil war. That doesn't help it out.
Yeah, but he's won. He's not going anywhere. All right. If 2028 is the year, we're gonna have to see a successor soon, right? Because the thing is that, what's the word? If we discount the parts of the King of the North, the first three guys, the first two guys, and focus on the last third guy, what's the word? Perhaps he can come out of nowhere, right?
Say that one more time. That last part.
All right. The other thing is that if we discount the first guy, the first King of the North, and the second King of the North, leaving the third King of the North, and just wait till the fourth one, and Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth, we'll store down.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the word? The guy who comes out of nowhere and what's the word? Takes over. Still, he's going to have to appear in that region, right?
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
What's the word? Unless you count America as the Antichrist kingdom, Babylon, but that's maybe, but it's a stretch.
Yeah, I don't see how it could. I mean, I was thinking earlier about, speaking of the successors, and especially if we say that there's a large swath of, of time, then we could start to consider that, well, part of it could be, well, the Romans then went and conquered the Seleucid Empire, or, I mean, even as far as east as Babylon, if that is indeed the king of the north. So maybe the successor could be found in the Roman Empire, but yeah, that kind of logic, you could still never get to America because America never conquered anywhere in Europe. So that's that would fall flat. You would still have to deal with.
We defeated the Italians in World War II.
I guess we haven't been defeated since then, have we?
We've been defeated all over the place, but let's do it on.
Yeah, but we've never been invaded. It's never been a personal defeat for us. Okay, so then.
All right. So verse 21, between verse 20 and 21, we have the Antichrist appearing on the scene. So verse 21 is the beginning of the Antichrist. And before, discounting the successor and then the successor and finally the last successor, the Antichrist, let's store it down. Let's just go through 21 again. Let's just reread it again. Try to pick this apart. He will be succeeded by a contemptible person who has not been given the honor of royalty. All right, so he doesn't have to be a king, I guess. He will invade the kingdom when its people feel secure, and he will seize it through intrigue.
What is the kingdom? Is it Israel?
I don't think so, because here's the thing: is that later on he invades the beautiful land, and the beautiful land is Israel.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so I don't think it's Israel. He will invade.
It's always the kingdom of the south here. Presumably, I mean, maybe it couldn't be. If we go by this, well, never mind.
Well, he's the king of the north, right? So right now, he takes over the kingdom of the north through intrigue. Well, Joe Biden didn't win the election,
That's amusing.
Oh man,
I already know how people spin this, but
You could spin it that way, but no, that doesn't make any sense in the
Um,
passage, in the context.
and behind Joe is Obama, so Obama sees it through intrigue. Yeah. Then an overwhelming army will be swept away before him. Both it and the Prince of the Covenant will be destroyed. Oh man, so I'm guessing Israel, Prince of the Covenant.
They'll be overwhelmed by the governor.
Then an overwhelming army will be swept away before him. All right, look, who will be this overwhelming army? America? And the Prince of the Covenant will be destroyed. So, what's the word? I'm guessing America gets wiped out in verse 22. If we're applying it to modern geopolitics. Right. Then an overwhelming army will be swept away before him, because who's in the Middle East right now? Russia and America. And the prince, both it and the Prince of the Covenant. All right, so the Israelis will be destroyed. So Israel will be weakened. After coming to an agreement with him, he will act deceitfully, and with only a few people, he will rise to power. All right. Guys, can you hold on one second? I need to do something real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay. I wish we had the concordant parallel, though, as we were reading this.
What are you getting out of it so far?
That's very interesting. Certainly, thoughts are coming to mind here. I had not noticed that, this aspect of it, because I haven't really paid that much attention to Daniel.
All right, I'm back.
I've read this, but yeah, I've not noticed that these aspects of it before.
All right. So, if the prophecy community, and not just the prophecy community, but if the chronological argument holds, and if 2020 has to be the year, and we have to apply modern geopolitics to this, those all presuppositions.
Mm-hmm.
But so, the overwhelming army is destroyed, both in the Prince of the Covenant. So, America, I'm guessing, and the Prince of the Covenant, the Israelis, will be destroyed instantaneously. La Palma, who knows? Anyhow. After coming to an agreement with him, so he will act deceitfully with only a few people, he will rise to power. So he doesn't start off big, he starts off really small. When the richest provinces feel secure, he will invade them and will achieve what neither his fathers nor his forefathers did. He will distribute plunder, loot, and wealth among his followers. He will plot the overthrow of fortresses, but only for a time. With a large army, he will stir up strength and courage against the king of the south. All right. Then the king of the south will wage war with a large and very powerful army. But he will not be able to stand because of the plots devised against him. Those who eat from the king's provisions will try to destroy him. All right. So there's a coup d'etat in Egypt. His army will be swept away, and many will fall in battle. These two kings, with their hearts bent on evil, will sit at the same table and lie to each other, but to no avail. All right, so there'll be a peace talks that go nowhere.
I also want to point out before we go any further, it's interesting to me, the end of verse 25, the reason why it says that he will fail. Right? You're thinking, like, if you're applying this to America versus Egypt, we don't really need to be this, we don't need wild plots, right? Just out of having the most powerful navy and the most powerful army on the earth, Egypt would fall in the exact same way that Iraq fell to us, right? So I don't think you can apply. I don't think that the king of the north could be America.
Well,
maybe it could be another regional power. I still think that's possible.
Actually, I believe America's already taken out by verse. What was the word? What do we usually do? Yes, I believe if we're applying modern geopolitics, I believe verse 22, America gets whacked. So it's not even a player here.
Okay.
All right. Here's the thing. Who's the big bad who's protecting Israel? America, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the overwhelming army is swept before him. All right, so who has the biggest army on earth? America. So it's swept away before him. Both in the Prince of the Covenant, which would be Israel, I'm supposing. But yeah. Those who eat from the king's provisions will destroy him, his army will be swept away, and many will fall in battle. The two kings, with their hearts bent on evil, will sit at the same table, lie to each other, but to no avail, because an end will come at the appointed time. The king of the north will return to his country with great wealth, but his heart will be set against the Holy Covenant. He will take action against it and then return to his own country. At that appointed time, he will invade the south again, but this time the outcome will be different than what was before. Ships from Chittim or Rome or the west will oppose him, and he will lose heart. Then he will turn back and vent his fury against the Holy Covenant. He will return and show favor to those who forsake the Holy Covenant. All right. So he's already in Israel by this time, right? I'm supposing. You know, because we'll store it. How do I put this? He will show favor to those who forsake the Holy Covenant. You know.
Okay.
You know how,
or at least he's an influential power over Israel. I guess he doesn't necessarily have to have conquered them, but at this point they're a vassal to him.
All right. His armed forces will rise up and desecrate the temple fortress, and will abolish the daily sacrifice. Then will set up the abomination that causes desolation. With flattery, he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant. But the people who know their God will firmly resist him. Those who are wise will instruct many. So we're already at the end. We're already at 3.5 years. The end of the 3.5. The beginning of the end of the 3.5 years here.
Yeah.
Let's go to a more literal translation, shall we?
Yeah, I like that.
I don't know how any of this stuff connects to any of the modern day stuff. It doesn't seem to have any connection.
Well, I guess then we're far away off from the second coming.
Oh, geez. If that's true, how do we deal with this place? It's getting worse.
I know.
It's not that bad. Like, a lot of people act like the sky is falling, but, you know, it's not that bad. It's not like World War II levels or World War I levels or, you know, what's the word? Anyway, okay. Daniel.
I couldn't survive this place. It's hard to live in. I know how everything's unaffordable. It's getting worse. Okay, you think 80 years of this place is fun? Not even close. I don't want to do 80 years here. I couldn't do it.
Okay, alright, so we're going to begin again. So this is the guy before the Antichrist. Then he will turn back his face to the strongholds of his own land. Yet he will stumble and fall and shall not be found. Alright, now here comes the Antichrist on the scene, verse 20. Then there will stand in his post, out of his root, a royal sprout, who will have an exactor to pass among the honorable of the kingdom. Yet in some days he shall be broken, not in anger and not in battle. Then there will stand... Alright, so that was verse 20. This is the Antichrist. Then there will stand in his post a despised person.
So one thing I want to point out here is in verse 20, there's nothing about a successor in the literal translation. Then there will stand in his posts out of his root, I think is where they get successor in the NIV.
Well, the Antichrist paraphrases a lot.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Then there will stand in his post a despised person. Hence they do not bestow on him the splendor of the kingdom. Yet he will enter with ease and make steadfast the kingdom. All right, so by slick dealings. Now with armed forces of the overwhelmers shall be overwhelmed. Now the armed forces of the overwhelmers shall be overwhelmed from before him, and shall be broken. Even the governor of the covenant.
Even the governor of the covenant.
All right. So that's a huge difference in king, prince, governor of the covenant. So not, you know, anyhow, what's the thing? Prince implies bloodlines, but just governor of the covenant doesn't imply the same thing. Due to people joining themselves with him, he shall practice deceit and come up with staunch with a little nation. All right, a little nation, right? A little nation. Hold on, guys. Let's look at the Middle East right now.
Let's see. Do the people join themselves with him?
Yeah.
He shall practice see and come up and be staunch with a little nation.
All right. Hold on. Let me screen share. Share screen. Chrome tab.
So, if this is not the end of the eon, what time are we in? If we aren't
Just another time, right? Everyone wants to hope they're at the end. All right. So, if 2028 is the year of the second coming, here are our possible contenders.
Mhm.
What's the word? Hold on, guys. My screen.
Little nation.
A little nation. All right.
Kuwait.
Hold on, guys. I'm screaming. I'm freezing up here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. We haven't lost sound yet. Right now. Okay. All right. So Turkey, that's bigger. That's a big nation, I guess.
It's a huge nation, really.
All right. Syria is kind of big. Jordan is to the east. What's the word? We have basically these three nations: Lebanon, Syria, Iraq. Right.
Hmm.
Is there Kuwait?
What is that NZ? Between
Nicosia?
Kuwait and Iraq. And Saudi Arabia, I guess. Not really relevant, but when.
Well, Kuwait
Oh,
is
it's a
nowhere
neutral
near.
zone, isn't it? Neutral zone.
Neutral zone.
I guess they formed a neutral zone after the war over there. I wasn't
Yes.
aware of that.
All right. So our three contenders right now are Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq. Right. So and here's the thing: is that what's the word? Jordan is not north; it's east of Jerusalem. Right. But back in the day, they said Iraq was north of. But then again, what's the word?
Most of the population is located north of Jerusalem. Well, no, is that true?
The Chaldeans
Kind of.
were around here. I remember.
Hmm.
Yeah. But anyhow, so the king of the north. What's the word?
Birdie.
If what's the word? Right now, it's looking at like Lebanon. Right. It's
Hmm.
looking at Lebanon. A small nation, a tiny
Definitely a
nation.
small nation.
Yes. Small nation. And right now, Lebanon's always been a shit show.
Hmm.
Right. It's always been a shit show. Anyhow. But going back, it could be Syria, it could be Iraq, it could be Lebanon.
Well, let's read the text again.
Yeah. Sure. You having fun, Ace?
You have a bird in your room?
I do. Baby ducks.
Bird or-
I can't pull one on you, huh? Oh, I know the phrase. Nothing gets by you.
Are we going back to the text?
No, I'm trying to. I'm just. What's the word?
Struggling.
I'm just struggling with it.
Technology.
at the moment.
Things are getting so crazy these days. People don't think we're near the end of the age. Something's wrong if we're not, because things are getting insane. You can't go out and deal with this. Place is getting worse. I can tell. It's getting worse. It's not getting better. I know that.
Hmm. I agree
If
with
we
that.
weren't near the end of the eon, things wouldn't be getting so bad so fast like they are. Like,
All right.
whenever in history has the whole world been shut down? Never. Never in history has the whole world been shut down. Like it has.
The whole world is not really shut down. They're still
You
coming.
can't travel anywhere.
Ooh.
They're
Plenty of people are
claiming
traveling
stop.
right now. Plenty of people are
Back in
traveling.
2020, the whole world did shut down. You could not travel. Never in history has the flow of humanity been stopped like the way it has. Has the flow of movement been stopped?
Nick, there are
Right.
other countries besides America.
Look at Australia. They are truly.
Well, again, that's a Western country, a very Western country, a very highly developed in the spirit, the naval spirit. You know, there are other countries out there, Nick. The whole world has not been shut down. A small part of the world population has been shut down. Anyway, so what's the word? Let's read again. Then there will stand his post a despised person, hence they do not bestow on him the splendor of the kingdom. Yet he will not enter with ease and make steadfast the kingdom by slick dealings. Now the armed forces of the overwhelmer shall be overwhelmed from before him and shall be broken. That sounds like America right there. You know, what's the word? Like, remember, you know, the fall of America in Afghanistan? You know, we were overwhelmed with ourselves and we just gave up. You know. Yeah.
And we definitely have been overwhelmers in the past, although.
Yeah. Anyway, even the governor of the covenant, due to the people joining themselves with him, he shall practice. And the governor of the covenant, I'm guessing, is Israel, but that's just an assumption.
Could be, yeah.
So what's the word? So we don't get involved because we're overwhelmed. The overwhelmer shall be overwhelmed. All right. So we have too many problems to deal with, and that sounds like us. You know, our economy is going to shit. You know. Anyhow, yeah, we can't afford another $1 trillion war. Due to people joining up themselves with him, he shall practice deceit and come up and be staunch with a little nation. With ease, among the stout ones of the province, he shall come and do what his fathers had never done, nor his fathers' fathers. Plunder and loot and goods shall he lavish on them, and against Egypt he shall devise his devices, yet only for a season.
Oh, I want to point out, this seems to imply that the relationship between the Antichrist and, again, if we're assuming this large swath of time, is genetic. It's his fathers and his fathers' fathers, right?
I guess.
So this successor idea that we're getting from the NIV seems to more reflect, you know, when you look at the text, it seems to be genetic. Especially the previous comment about, you know, coming out of the root, which I guess gives the same idea, right?
Yeah, the root. All right. Now let's just talk about this. A small nation. Now, here's Egypt. This is what he has to invade, right? Now Lebanon is a small nation. I guess you could do it by the coast, right? But you know, how's he going to get his ships to cross, right? And you know, he got a navy. Now, if he does it by land, he's blocked by Syria, so I'm guessing Syria would have to team up with him.
Lebanon is not in a good place to do anything. I mean, they're struggling to keep their own country in check.
Yeah, but as I said, it's a small nation, you know, and he rises to power with small forces, not big forces, small forces.
Okay.
You know, then what's the word? You got Iraq, so maybe walks over. I don't know. You know.
There's a lot of desert.
There's a lot of desert, you know. Or you got Jordan here, you know, maybe there. Yeah. Syria. Yeah. But anyway, going back to the text. He shall rise with his vigor and his heart against the king of the Southland with his great army. So now he has a great army.
Mm-hmm.
And with the king of the Southland he shall be stirred up for battle, and with his great and exceedingly staunch army. So this is the army of Egypt. Yet he shall not stand, for they shall devise devices against him. The eaters of his dainties shall break him. His army shall be overwhelmed, and many fall wounded.
The eaters of his dainties.
Yes. Then the two kings, with evil in their hearts, will sit at one table. The lie they are speaking shall not prosper. For it is yet further to the end, to the appointed time. Appointed times, you know, what's the word? The rapture community is all about the Moedim, the appointed times, you know, feast days, you know, correlating feast days to raptures.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, when returns to his land with a great amount of goods, his heart will be on the holy covenant, and he will make it effective before he returns to his land.
Make the Holy Covenant effective, I guess.
Whoa, that's whoa. Let's look at verse 28. Let's look at that verse in the NIV.
Yeah. Curious.
All right. But his heart will be against the holy covenant.
Be
That's
set
a different.
against.
When he returns to his land with a great amount of goods, his heart will be on the holy covenant, and he will make it effective before he returns to his land.
What?
That's a
How did
totally
they
different
get
thing.
that?
Let's go to 2001 translation.
What about the Septuagint as well?
Well, this is a
I'll look
Septuagint
at it.
based. This is a Septuagint based one.
Okay, good.
But they paraphrase a lot, so they paraphrase all the time in this translation. You know, like for example, they took 1 Timothy, 1 Timothy 4:10 as God save all men, especially those who believe, and they translate to all sorts of people. You know, so you know, then when he goes back to his country, he will do so with things that he's plundered, and with his heart set firmly against the holy sacred agreement.
Huh. Why is the concordant in disagreement with all these other translations?
Well, we don't know if it's disagreements per se.
I mean, I would certainly not read what the concordant has written in it and immediately think that it means he's against it. Especially when it says he's going to establish it. Right? Or not establish. What does it read again?
Let's go for the interlinear.
It's the word on.
Yeah, on. It reads on. His heart is on the covenant, and he makes it effective before he returns to his land. And that verse sounds unambiguously positive on both ends. Huh.
Interlinear. And of all returning to his land with riches great, and his heart shall be moved against.
It's just al.
Al. Shall be moved against. Up. All right, let's look at that word al.
Wow.
Upon, above, over. All right. And here's where you get your problems with not translating concordantly.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. How many different words?
That's at least 100 right there.
Wow.
Well,
I mean, if we're going to affirm the concordant methodology of translating, then we definitely have to read this and think that every other translation has it wrong. So do we throw away the concordant way of translating here, or?
well, I mean, look how many ways they translated this word.
Yeah.
Al. You know,
I mean, that's
about
excessive.
about 27, above 43, above 16, accordance 62, according 40, account 11, addition 4, against 536.
They do that a lot.
one. All right, well, they're against. So there's that.
Then they also have encouragingly 2 times.
And then they have over 538.
Oh, over a lot, just as many times as against.
Okay, let's wind this up in 10 minutes, okay?
All right. So above or against?
Well, let's return to the concordant text.
Sure.
Finish up.
At the appointed time he shall return and come into the southland, yet at the later occasion it shall not be the same as the former. For boats of Kittim will come against him. Hence he will be sore when he returns. He will menace the holy covenant and make this effective. Or will make
Okay.
this effective is in life-face type, so that's just an difference. And will make. When he returns, he shall have understanding with those who forsake the holy covenant. Armed forces from him shall stand about. They will profane the sanctuary, the stronghold, and take away the continuous ritual, and set up the abomination of desolation. And those who condemn the covenant he shall pollute with slickness. Yet the people, knowing their Elohim, shall be steadfast and act accordingly. The intelligence of the people shall cause many to understand, yet they are caused to stumble by the word, by the sword, and by blaze, and by captivity and plunder for days. Even in their stumbling they shall be helped with a little help. Yet many are allied with them by means of swords. You know, let's slow down. I want to say this before we continue, since we are running out of time. We got like 10 minutes according to Ace. Until 3 o'clock. I'm guessing we'll cut this out at 3. You know, Jesus said, "Near is the kingdom of the heavens," right? And assuming they did repent, right, then all this would have had to happen then, right?
All right.
So,
presumably,
if all this had to happen then, if they did repent, then this Daniel 7-year tribulation had to begin at that time, if they did repent. Well then, you know, what's the word? It could be, you know, what's the word down? That only the last guy has to, the Antichrist has to show up, right? But
yeah, you're saying that the beginning of the events of the tribulation are imminent when Jesus was alive.
Yes.
It only took them accepting it for it to have happened.
Yes.
And that part makes sense. True.
So this guy could have showed up back then, if we find that line, following that that flow of reason. So
And that would give an excuse for there to be a swath of time from verse 19 to verse 20, right? Because verse 20 had to be something that the people of Jesus' time could see as something which was about to happen. It had to be. Or they would have been able to say, well, clearly Jesus can't actually be the Messiah because, well, then this prophecy can't be fulfilled in our lifetime.
And here's the thing. What's the word? At the time of Jesus, the Romans controlled Egypt.
Yeah, Egypt and Syria. Well, no.
Yeah.
And Syria? Or was Syria still independent at this time?
At the time of Jesus.
Yeah, the Seleucids had already been conquered at this time.
All right, so
both Egypt and Syria were both vassals of Russia. Sorry, of the Romans.
Yes. So all this could have taken place in Jesus' day. So us looking at the geopolitics and saying it's impossible, well, that's not wise. Just if it were to happen today, you know, as how do I put this? Anyway, let's continue. As the text says, the army of the overwhelmers shall be overwhelmed. So there's no reason to drag America into this story.
Yeah, that's fair.
Dang it, where is it?
There we go.
Some of the intelligent shall stumble to refine and to purify and to whiten with them until the era of the end, for it is yet further to the appointed time. Yet the king does as is accepted to himself. Also, guys, speaking of appointed times, there's only 3, I believe, appointed times. All right, and we're coming up on one of them. What's the word? The Feast of Tabernacles.
Yeah,
that's
an
an appointed
Tabernacles.
time. You know, and anyhow, if you believe the prophecy community, if you believe the delayed months, anyhow, let's continue. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, he shall exalt and magnify himself over every El, or every god. Against the El of Elohim, he shall speak extraordinary. Hold on, that's a different thing. Against the El of Elohim. So the God of gods. So Yahweh, El of Elohim, the God of gods, Yahweh. Right. Let's see how others translate that.
What? I thought the plural of El was Elohim. Is there
it's
difference?
It's used loosely. It's used very loosely at times.
Mm-hmm.
And he shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods. Well, we know Yahweh is the God of gods. Of things against the God.
Sure.
He will magnify, he will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and will say unthird things against the God of gods. Yeah, God of gods. So yeah, he will speak bad against Yahweh, I guess.
It's an interesting way to put Yahweh, but
He is the God of gods. You know, at least
Extraordinary
interpretable.
impieties.
Let's see, we got 5 minutes left. Let's kind of rush through this. If the king shall do as is acceptable to himself, he shall exalt him. He shall speak extraordinary impieties. He shall prosper until the menace is concluded, for that which is decided will be done. Concerning the Elohim of his fathers, he shall not understand, nor concerning the coveting of wives, nor concerning any Eloah shall he understand. For he shall magnify himself over all, and instead he shall glorify the Eloah of the strong, and Eloah whom his fathers did not know. So he's not going to be Muslim.
Mhm.
He shall glorify, or Jewish. Well, he could be, but yeah. Because here's the thing, how a lot of prophecy teachers teach the Antichrist will be the 12th Imam, right? But if he's exalting himself over the God of his fathers,
Mhm.
I don't think he's going to be, a practicing Muslim, or openly.
Yeah, it sounds like he's going to be secular of whatever he is. He's not going to be a Catholic. He's not going to be a Jew. He's just going to be a him worshiper.
Yeah. Or worship him, or, worship me, I'm God, something like that. And Eloah, whom his fathers did not know, he shall glorify with gold, silver, precious stones, and treasures. Or at least a new God. He was bringing a whole new God out there.
Mhm.
He will deal with fortresses of the strong, with the foreign Eloah, whom he will recognize with increasing glory. He will cause them to rule over many, and he will apportion the ground for a price. Then in the era of the end, the king of the southland shall gore him, and the
Oh,
king
wow.
and the king of the north shall come against him like a hurricane, with chariots and cavalry and with many ships. Thus he will come into the lands and overwhelm and pass through. When he comes into the stately land, many shall stumble, yet these shall escape from his hand, Edom and Moab, and the principal area of the sons of Ammon. He shall send his hand into the land of Egypt shall not continue to have deliverance. He will rule by reserves of gold and silver, and by all that's coveted, by all the coveted treasures from Egypt. All right, Egypt's poor as hell, Anyway, the Libyans and the Cushites reserve are his fastness. Yet his reports shall fluster him
What a word.
from the sunrise and from the north. All right, from the sunrise and from the north. All right, so from the east and from the north.
Mhm.
So Russians and Chinese, if we're applying modern geopolitics, or North Turkey, or if it's Lebanon and Syria, I guess, and east. So yes, if it's
Yeah, I think it's more
Lebanon,
likely that it would be the major powers of the world.
Yeah, if it's
Russia
the major
and China.
powers, oh man, this is an old map, Soviet Union. Oh man, if it's major powers, then I'm guessing North Russia, East China. But if it's not major powers, if it's small fries,
I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? I mean, this man, there are going to be people who's going to want to get this guy out of office. There will probably be a conspiracy against the man at some point in his life.
But if this guy if it's Lebanon, then I'm guessing Turkey and Syria. If it's Syria, then Turkey, Iraq. And if it's Baghdad, if it's Iraq, then Turkey, Iran. Depends on how, if we want to include the major powers or it's just a small regional thing. There we go. And he will march forth with a great fury to exterminate and do many. He will plant the tents of his regalia between the seas in the stately holy mountain. When he comes unto his end, there will be no help for him. In that era, Michael shall stand up, the great chief who is standing over the sons of your people. Then an era of distress will come to pass, such as has not occurred since there was a nation on earth until that era. Now, in that era, your people shall escape, all who are found written in the scroll. From those sleeping in the soil of the ground, many shall awake, these to Aeonian life, and those to reproach for Aeonian repulsion. The intelligent shall warn as the warnings of the atmosphere, and those turning many to righteousness will be as the stars for the eon and further. Now, you, Daniel, that's hold on. The eon and further, that's a huge difference than forever and ever. The eon and further.
absolutely.
And if there's an eon and further after the eon, that's not, then the eon can't be forever. Now, you, Daniel, stop up the words and seal up the scroll until the era of the end, when many shall swerve as evil shall increase. While evil is increasing. I, Daniel, I see and behold two others, as standing one on the near shore of the waterway, and one on the far shore of the waterway. I said to the man clothed in linen who is above the waters of the waterways, until when is the end of the marvels? Until I heard the man clothed in linen who was above the waters of the waterways, until the era of the end. Then he raised up his right hand and his left hand to the heavens and swore by him who is living for the eon, that is, for an appointed time, 2 appointed times, and half an appointed time. And when the shattering of the hands of the holy people is concluded, then all these things shall have their conclusion. As for me, I have heard, yet I did not understand. So I said, my lord, we're just guessing. We're doing wild guesses, wild shots in there. What will be after these things? And he replied, go, Daniel, for the words are stopped up and sealed until the era of the end. Many shall purify and whiten themselves and be refined, yet the wicked will act wickedly. None of all the wicked shall understand, yet the intelligent are understanding. From the era when the continuous ritual was taken away, and to the setting of the abomination of desolation is 1,290 days. Happy is he who tarries and attains to the 1,335 days. Now you go on to the end, and you shall rest and stand up for your lot at the end of the days. All right.
Amen. So before we cut stream here, I just want to mention, if anyone's actually watching and interested in this, Enoch wrote a commentary over the entire book of Daniel. I will definitely be reading it over these particular passages. I will post the link, for anyone who may be interested in reading that as well. Great material. Thank you so much, Ace, for hosting this.
Ace, can we get like 3 more minutes?
God bless you.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. GDP Egypt. All right, 360. Because the thing is, if the Antichrist has to invade Egypt, and from the Egypt he pays people out, right?
Okay.
All right. What's in Egypt? $363 billion. All right, so it's not as poor as I thought it was.
It's not that bad.
What is
I doubt that GDP does not include any of the riches that are located in. I'm sure there's a bunch of gold in all those pyramids. It would require him desecrating a important site, because I imagine right now they don't let any of the archaeologists take any of that gold, obviously. But maybe he'll do that and disrespect the law and take the gold.
All right, GDP Florida. Why can't you give me something simple?
Mm-hmm.
Florida.
Well, it says 640 billion. I think it said 640. Oh, yeah.
Or 1.1 trillion. 1.1 trillion. All right, so it's all right. Let's pick a Mississippi. All right, so the GDP of Mississippi is 115 billion.
That's trillion, so that there's no way that's right. No, wait, you're right. That's billion. I'm sorry.
All right, so Egypt is twice the GDP of Mississippi. Now going back to our map here, since the Antichrist has to invade and plunder Egypt, let's see the GDPs of neighboring states. GDP. All right, Lebanon GDP. 33 billion. So if he's invading Egypt and he's coming from Lebanon, he's got like a 10-factor return of investment if he's winning that. If it's Syria, 40 billion. So again,
I mean, Egypt is a pretty wealthy nation. You look
if we're going by the local players and the modern times, Syria, Iraq, 167. So this is pretty far out for the north, but maybe, since Mystery Babylon.
I'm surprised that Egypt is so much more wealthy than the other nations in the area. It's interesting.
All right, and lastly, Turkey.
Turkey might be pretty high. Yes, 720
All right, so they're not making a huge return on investment there, but they have military to invade. Let's
Yeah.
see, and finally, Russia, which is a stretch. Oh, what will Russia get by invading Egypt? Nothing. 1.48 trillion. So let's see. So the modern, what's the word? So Lebanon, if they're taking Egypt, makes tenfold increase, and these two guys, what's the word? Iraq are getting twice as much, and Syria's getting 4 times as much, I believe, if I remember correctly. Anyhow, so it is possible, right? It is possible. You know, I thought Egypt was this poor shithole. Apparently not. You know, as a comparison, Mississippi, which is the poorest state in America, is only 100. So yeah, Iraq is richer than Mississippi. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's accurate. Well, in terms of GDP, because as I pointed out earlier, there's probably a lot of gold located in Egypt, which is not allowed to be exported for archaeological reasons, like you mentioned earlier, the pyramids.
All right, so Iraq is right now richer than Mississippi. So Iraq, let's see, Iraq is 167. What was? All right, so 167, right, was Iraq, correct?
I've already forgotten. I'm sorry.
All right, C63.
I'm gonna head out. See you, Ace.
All right. Well, anyhow,
It was wonderful.
guys.
Thank you.
See you guys. Goodbye. Grace and
God
peace.
bless.
Amen. Okay. It winds it up. There you have it. Leave some comments. Tell us what you think about Daniel. And maybe even about the 2 Gospels. Grace to you.